Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads, they pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com. It's the last day of the Free Speech TV Fund Drive, your last chance. Well, I suppose you can make donations anyway, anytime, but for this pledge drive, we need to hit this goal, and we're so far behind. And Andrew from San Diego's $15,000 match, we didn't use it all up yesterday. We only used up about $6,000 of it. So we still have a substantial match here. Every dollar you give will be matched. Every dollar you give. So please call now to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Every dollar you give will be matched by this generous gift from Andrew. It's so critical that we have this television network, particularly during these times, particularly during this very, very difficult episode in the history of the United States, as the billionaire class has risen up and taken over the Republican Party to the point that individual Republicans like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker are looking at their career opportunities down the road with right-wing think tanks, with big law firms, with polluting companies that are going to make them rich, rich, rich when they leave the Senate if only they hang in there. And nobody else talks about it. This network is so important. 877-378-8669. Please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help. This is your last chance to get that really great feeling knowing that you gave to Free Speech TV and helped this network thrive and succeed and grow and keep on going. Plus, you have an opportunity to share your feedback. When you call and make your contribution, they take notes about what people say. And if you want to say, hey, I like this show, I don't like this show, I'd like more of this, I'd like less of that, whatever it may be, here's your chance. 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV. Please call now. With a $30 gift, you get the Free Speech TV mini kit. It's a sticker and a button. With a $72 gift, you get the first third edition. I guess it's the brand new, updated. I took a year and a half updating this book. And it's just coming out now. It's literally shipping this week. And you'll be one of the very first people to get it with the $72 gift, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I think the best of all the books that I've written, and the most important of all the books I've written. With a $120 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt kit, you get the the sticker, the button, and the t-shirt made in the USA with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. It's basically the same thing, only with a hoodie instead of a t-shirt, and the sticker and the button. With a $360 gift, you get the Vote for Our Future pack. That's sort of all of that's the Free Speech TV logo t-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. This is a historic election coming up, and these are historic mementos. These are the kind of things that they'll be selling on eBay 10, 20, 30 years from now for absurd prices. If you look back at how election memorabilia goes, well, maybe not. Don't do this because you're hoping to make a fortune on collectibles, but I am going to be hanging on to mine. Anyhow, you get the t-shirt, you get the sweatshirt, the hoodie, you get the button, and you get the sticker. With a $480 gift, you get the all of the above package. That is my book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, the Vote Free Speech TV logo dark gray t-shirt, the zip-up hooded sweatshirt, the sticker, and the button. And with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and come hang out with us and see how we make this show, watch the sausage being made, and I'll take you to lunch and we can have a great conversation, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the issues of the day and on Free Speech TV and what we should do more or less of and what you find interesting and don't. I learn a lot from those meetings. I learn an awful lot from those meetings. Of course, I learn a lot from my callers too. It's really nice to meet people who have really made a substantial effort to help this network. And what's so surprising to me is that the vast majority, actually, of the people who've made these $1,000 gifts are not wealthy people. They're people for whom people who can afford to do it, but they're not the hoi polloi, the elite. They're people who just care a lot about this network and can make that kind of a contribution without it hurting them, which is just a great thing. So, however much you give, if it's $10, it becomes $20 today. A $30 gift becomes $60 today. A $72 gift becomes $124, $154, right? $144. 7 times 2 is 14, right? $120 gift, I never claimed the math was my strong suit. $120 gift becomes $240, and so on. Whatever you give, it's going to be doubled in terms of what Free Speech TV ends up with. And this is our last chance to soak up all of this matching grant. And there's a chunk of it left, a little less than $10,000. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Please call now. Take this opportunity today, the last day of the fund drive, to make your contribution and help this network stay on the air. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Please.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Greetings, my friends, patriots, lovers of democracy, truth, and justice, believers in peace, freedom, and the American way. Thom Hartmann here with you. Time to fight. Emergency mobilizations at Senate offices nationwide. It is noon on the East Coast. The original call was, for noon the next day, and that's now on the East Coast. Although numerous groups now, Progressive Change Campaign Committee, NARAL Action, and others are saying, anytime you can, today, Friday, show up at your senator's office. Doesn't matter who the senator is. Doesn't matter if it's the main office. They have branch offices all over your state. Each one of them, each state has 2 senators, with the exception of Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, and they both should have 2 senators. But, Republicans want to make sure that any state that votes Democratic doesn't have 2 senators. Anyhow, go to the offices of your senators and protest this. This is absolutely outrageous what is going on. What you saw yesterday was, first of all, was a crime. I mean, lying. Is it perjury to lie about the meanings of boof and devil's triangle? Yeah, it is. This is like the 5th or 6th time now that Brett Kavanaugh has lied to the Senate in the last 15 years. He lied to the Senate about knowing about stolen emails and information from Democrats. He lied to the Senate about what he did in the Bush administration with regard to torture. He has lied to the Senate about the meaning of words. He has lied about how much he drinks. He's lied about whether he ever blacks out. All of these things, the field is littered with evidence of these lies. In fact, Republicans don't even bother to refute these lies anymore. They simply say, well, time's over. It's, going to go on. This is perjury. In addition, the Deborah Ramirez, the second accuser, now the New Yorker has just published a series of emails between Republican staffers and her lawyer showing that they actively prevented her from testifying yesterday. They did not want her to show up. And again, this is another woman who did not come forward on her own. She was brought forward by the press, as was Dr. Ford. In this case, it was Ronan Farrow and Jane Mayer at the New Yorker. Alexandra, by the way, just a heads up. In a few minutes, Congressman Ro Khanna is going to call in, and we're going to be doing a national town hall for the rest of the hour. He'll be taking your calls. So if you have comments or questions that you'd like to share with Congressman Ro Khanna, give us a call now, and we'll put you on. And I'm sure that he's going to be talking about this, too. And then we're going to be talking about private prisons at the top of the second hour with Shane Bauer, who just wrote a book about this. He went undercover in the private prison industry, which is particularly poignant at this moment in time because, in other news of women, you probably may not have heard the name Alba Lorena Rodriguez. She was 5 months pregnant when she had a miscarriage. And she is now facing 20 years in prison. She's been in jail for a number of years, 30-year sentence. She has already served 8 years of a 30-year sentence for having an abortion in El Salvador. One of many women who have been imprisoned in El Salvador for having miscarriages, and they imprisoned them for having abortions ever since that country in 1998 criminalized abortion, which is exactly what Brett Kavanaugh wants to do here in the United States. Other news about women, Crystal Mason today begins her prison sentence in Texas for the crime of voting while being a felon. She's going to jail for 5 years. A young black woman who had a felony conviction, as many people of color do, disproportionately, certainly in Texas. And she did not realize that she could not legally vote. She cast a provisional ballot because her name wasn't on the list. It was never counted. But the Republican management of the state of Texas is putting her in prison for 5 years for voting, by way of saying to black people in Texas, if you've got anything on your record, don't even think about going to the polling place. Even if you don't have anything on your record. Meanwhile, Alexandra Petrie writes in the Washington Post. This was in my opinion, this was the best op-ed in the entire Washington Post because it summarized the whole thing. I mean, Donald Trump's feeling of entitlement. He went to a prep school. He went to fancy colleges. He was supported by his family. His father handed him millions of dollars. And then, he's the entitled rich white guy. Now, Brett Kavanaugh, the next entitled rich white guy, she writes, and it's in all caps. It's in the Washington Post. It's called, "How Dare You Do This to Brett Kavanaugh," in all caps. And it is so worth looking for in the Washington Post by Alexandra Petrie. She writes, "How dare you do this to Brett Kavanaugh? How dare you deny him this seat? Listen, no, you listen. Do you know who Brett Kavanaugh is? Brett Kavanaugh went to Georgetown Prep. Brett Kavanaugh is an optimist who looks on the sunshine side of the mountain. Brett Kavanaugh is not yelling, you're yelling. If Brett does not secure a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court, this country will be in shambles. This is his birthright. Do you know how embarrassing it is for a Georgetown prep graduate to not be on the Supreme Court? They are literally 12% of the court. This is probably the worst indignity you can inflict on a human being. You are going to deny a qualified man, the treasurer of the Keg Club. Do you hear him? He was Keg Club treasurer and a Renate alumnus. How dare you say a Keg Club treasurer and Renate alumnus should not serve on the Supreme Court? Are you going to believe her, America, over him? You heard the woman. She doesn't even like to fly, yet she flew here. She doesn't remember all the details of the evening, whereas he kept a calendar like his father before him. He is not emotional. You are emotional. No, you listen. They're going to drag him in front of all these other men and deny him a seat on the Supreme Court, and he will have to walk home confused and disoriented, and he will have to live with the feeling that he is not on the Supreme Court for as long as he lives. Whenever he gets on a plane and sits in his seat, he will think of the seat that he is not in. This is oppression. To be denied power over others, this is not. If that is not what it is, do not tell me. Now his world is falling apart. Now he's being forced to go over his high school behavior with a fine-tooth comb. This is not fair. This scrutiny, this demand to account, he deserves the power. Give it to him. Stop asking him these questions. Stop trying to slow this train down. This train had better get where it's going or something bad will happen. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And over on Daily Beast, the headline, Kavanaugh has become hero to the incel community. These are, the involuntarily celibate. Yes, I was a virgin until college. Maybe because no girl would kiss him? I don't know, but what a strange story. Will Sumner writing over at Daily Beast. You can check it out. And, of course, Seamus Khan writing, Kavanaugh's lying, his upbringing explains why. The elite learn early that they're special and they won't face consequences.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I'm going to pick up your phone calls in a little bit, and Congressman Ro Khanna presumably will be here any second. Stick around. And welcome back. Oh my, where did my mouse go? This is the problem with putting articles on top of your computer. Okay, let's pick up your phone calls. Peter. Well, Peter, you're listening to WCPT. They're in commercial break. Let me pick you up in just a minute. Tomas in Brooklyn, New York, watching Free Speech TV. Hey, Tomas, what's up?
Hey, Thomas, how you doing? I just want to make two quick points that I don't find Kavanaugh credible, because when Dick Durbin asked him on a personal level, why doesn't he ask for the FBI investigation, he was silent on it. So the question would have been, what was your reason not to ask for an FBI investigation?
Right.
And then the other point is Lindsey Graham, but the fact that I was thinking, what was Judge Merrick Garland was thinking when he heard Lindsey Graham going on his rant?
Yeah. Oh, what's Merrick Garland thinking through this whole thing? I mean, he was kept out for almost a year, for 10 months,
right.
and this is insane. And with regard to Lindsey Graham, what Lindsey Graham was doing yesterday was a job interview for Jeff Sessions' job. Lindsey Graham wants to be the Attorney General of the United States. He's been a lawyer his whole life. He was a JAG lawyer. He was a judge. He wants to be the Attorney General. He wants to be the chief prosecutor for the country. And he's been sucking up to Donald Trump like there's no tomorrow. Somebody on my Twitter feed earlier made the comment, maybe I can find it real quickly, made the comment that, in fact, I liked it, that he says, this is don't panic. He says, okay, I'll say it. McCain was Lindsey Graham's alpha male. Men who need alpha males often co-opt their belief system. In other words, they adopt the belief system of the alpha male. Graham alpha males now is Trump. He co-opted his language. In other words, Graham borrowed Trump's language and his belief system. Graham will never be his own man. He is hardwired needing an alpha male in his life.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but it sure makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah, I had that feeling too.
Yeah, so thank you very much for the call, and well said. I absolutely agree with you. Helen in Fairmont, West Virginia. Hey, Helen, what's up?
I watched the hearings yesterday, I believe, Dr. Ford. But what I wanted to say, did you notice, and Senator Whitehouse mentioned it this morning, that the prosecutor that the Republicans hired, whenever she was asking about the dates and everything on his calendar, and those 4 boys were at this house.
Right, this is July 1st, 1982.
That's when Graham hopped up and took his little tirade.
And they took her off the floor of the Senate.
Yes, I think she was getting pretty close to the date and also who was there.
Yep.
And I think that's the only reason he went on his tirade. I'm totally disappointed in him. I'm totally disappointed in Grassley and Hatch and all those.
Yeah.
I think they're horrible people.
Yeah.
And I believe an FBI investigation is totally necessary because I'm sure they can find that house. And then I think if they zero in on that date, that prosecutor looked like she was completely flabbergasted when they closed her off.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know what she has to say about that.
I would too, and I'm guessing, being a good Republican, that she's not giving interviews, but I would like to know what she thought too. Helen, great points all. Thank you very much for the call, and very well said. Thanks for watching us in West Virginia there. We'll be right back. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Further thoughts, it seems fairly obvious to me that when Rachel Mitchell, the sex crimes prosecutor from Maricopa County, started asking Brett Kavanaugh about July 1st, the date that Sheldon Whitehouse pointed out on his calendar this morning, is the date that, according to Kavanaugh's own calendar, it was a Friday. He said he was out of town all the weekends. This was not a weekend. This was a Friday night. And he was having brewskis with the judge and, with the guys that Christine Ford put in the room. Now, he named two other boys, and Grassley said, well, therefore, it's obviously a different meeting. Did the boys show up later? Were they, it's just, but as soon as she got to that issue, that was the point at which Lindsey Graham jumps up and blows the whole thing up, and Chuck Grassley lets him do it. And then they hustle her out of the room, and she's not allowed to ask Kavanaugh any more questions. Instead, he just gets a tongue bath from Ted Cruz, from John Cornyn, and from Mike Lee, and from, all the other Republicans on the committee. So, number one. And number two, Lindsey Graham's outburst, in my humble opinion, was a job interview for the job of Attorney General of the United States with Donald Trump. Lindsey Graham used to be John McCain's best friend. And I always wondered about Lindsey Graham. Is he just kind of an obedient suck up to somebody? Does he want to be, is his role in life, in his own mind, to be some big person's wingman? Or is he trying to develop his own persona I mean, he did run for president once. But he was always John McCain's wingman. And now, apparently, he's decided to be Donald Trump's wingman. And he's completely abandoned all the principles of independence and thinking for yourself that John McCain at times exemplified and certainly claimed to have. Is Congressman Khanna with us? Okay, cool. Congressman Ro Khanna is on the line.
Sorry to be a little late.
Hey, Congressman, how are you?
I'm doing well, but a terrible day in Washington, but just unbelievable, the testimony yesterday.
It really and truly is. I should introduce you. You're the U.S. Congressman from the 17th District of California, the Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov is the website, and people can tweet you at Rep. Ro Khanna. So your thoughts on what happened yesterday and this morning?
Well, it's appalling. I mean, we were just talking about this on the floor of the House. I don't think there's a single person who didn't believe Dr. Ford. She was honest and raw, emotional. It took extraordinary courage for her to come forward. She didn't want to come forward publicly. She finally did so. And then the message is that it doesn't matter. I mean, there was the biggest irony is here they're saying there's no corroborating evidence, but they're making no effort to get any of the corroborating evidence. So it is just a slap in the face, not just of women, but of the process of American democracy, the sense that there's some fair process that would be followed, and this is just being railroaded by Grassley and the committee.
Yeah, absolutely. Congressman, usually when you come on, you take calls. We have a full board of calls. Every single line is full. Many people want to weigh in on the Kavanaugh thing. I did announce about 15 minutes ago that at the opening of the show that you would be with us, and if people had questions for you, and I'm not sure which might be questions for you and which might just be venting. They're all, Luis just said they're all for Ro Khanna. Okay, good. So pick up some phone calls, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people want to vent, I totally understand that. So
okay.
Both work for me.
Here we go. Peter in Chicago, listening on WCPT. You're on the air with Congressman Ro Khanna.
Hello, guys. Okay. Pro Brett Kavanaugh, just to let you know at the start. Dr. Ford, with the I don't fly stuff, was a bunch of BS because she was out in Delaware the entire time they were saying we will go to California. Second of all, she had no evidence, and the only evidence she had were 4 people who were there who all swore in an affidavit that they don't recall, never happened.
No, and Peter, actually, that's not true. And, Congressman, how do we rebut these sliced and diced talking points that are essentially BS?
Right.
For example, her friend, she didn't make a statement. Her lawyer made a statement, and the statement wasn't that it didn't happen. It was that she doesn't remember the detail, or something like that. I mean, how do you respond to this?
No, exactly. I mean, Kavanaugh kept saying that the other witnesses denied that it happened, but what they said is they didn't recall whether it happened, and one person actually said she believes Dr. Ford. The big point to make is it's the Democrats and Dr. Ford that wanted a hearing and wanted evidence and wanted people to testify. You can't say that there's no evidence when you're not willing to hear the evidence. I mean, it's just the height of hypocrisy. On the one hand, they're saying there's no corroboration, but they're not willing to call Mark Judge before the committee. They're not willing to call Dr. Ford's friend before the committee. They're not willing to have an FBI investigation. How are you going to get corroboration when you're not willing to listen to the evidence? The second thing is it's just so unfortunate about the credibility attacks on Dr. Ford. First of all, I believe her. But secondly, nitpicking about whether she flies or not is putting her on trial. And no one is nitpicking about Dr. Kavanaugh's statements about his yearbook. I mean, some of his explanations were laughable. I'd have more respect for him if he just said I was a dumb, stupid teenager and I said things I shouldn't have. At least he would be honest. But the stretching of the truth that he engaged in to defend himself, and that's the real credibility issue.
Yeah, it really is. We just have 40 seconds till we hit a hard break here. Really not enough time to take another caller on, and we'll have to continue picking them up after the break. The House has no role in this, right? I mean, do you have any ability to pressure the Senate?
We don't. I mean, there have been a number of members of the House. We've signed letters. There were several House members who went to the hearing. And of course, Anna Asher was the person who was a neighbor of mine in California, who Dr. Ford consulted, and she followed the process. She put her in touch with Senator Feinstein, and Senator Feinstein followed the process. I mean, she was respecting the wishes of Dr. Ford. So this idea that the process wasn't followed is one of these other falsehoods that the Republicans have put out there.
Yeah, amen. Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. His website, Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. You can tweet him at Rep. Ro Khanna. Say hi, say thanks. And he's the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and he represents the 17th District of California. We'll be back with your calls right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Congressman Ro Khanna on the line with us, taking your calls right after this. It's the last day of the Free Speech TV Fund Drive, your last chance. Well, I suppose you can make donations anyway, anytime, but for this pledge drive, we need to hit this goal, and we're so far behind. And Andrew from San Diego's $15,000 match, we didn't use it all up yesterday. We only used up about $6,000 of it. So we still have a substantial match here. Every dollar you give will be matched. Every dollar you give. So please call now to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Every dollar you give will be matched by this generous gift from Andrew. It's so critical that we have this television network, particularly during these times, particularly during this very, very difficult episode in the history of the United States, as the billionaire class has risen up and taken over the Republican Party to the point that individual Republicans like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker are looking at their career opportunities down the road with right-wing think tanks, with big law firms, with polluting companies that are going to make them rich, rich, rich when they leave the Senate, if only they hang in there. And nobody else talks about it. This network is so important. 877-378-8669. Please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help. This is your last chance to get that really great feeling knowing that you gave to Free Speech TV and helped this network thrive and succeed and grow and keep on going. Plus, you have an opportunity to share your feedback. When you call and make your contribution, they take notes about what people say. And if you want to say, hey, I like this show, I don't like this show, I'd like more of this, I'd like less of that, whatever it may be, here's your chance. 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV. Please call now. With a $30 gift, you get the Free Speech TV mini kit. It's a sticker and a button. With a $72 gift, you get the first third edition. I guess it's the brand new, updated. I took a year and a half updating this book. And it's just coming out now. It's literally shipping this week. And you'll be one of the very first people to get it with the $72 gift, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I think the best of all the books that I've written, and the most important of all the books I've written. With a $120 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt kit, you get the the sticker, the button, and the t-shirt made in the USA with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. It's basically the same thing, only with a hoodie instead of a t-shirt, and the sticker and the button. With a $360 gift, you get the Vote for Our Future pack. That's sort of all of that's the Free Speech TV logo t-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. This is a historic election coming up, and these are historic mementos. These are the kind of things that they'll be selling on eBay 10, 20, 30 years from now for absurd prices. If you look back at how election memorabilia goes, well, maybe not. Don't do this because you're hoping to make a fortune on collectibles, but I am going to be hanging on to mine. Anyhow, you get the t-shirt, you get the sweatshirt, the hoodie, you get the button, and you get the sticker. With a $480 gift, you get the all of the above package. That is my book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. the Vote Free Speech TV logo dark gray t-shirt, the zip-up hooded sweatshirt, the sticker, and the button. And with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and come hang out with us and see how we make this show, watch the sausage being made, and I'll take you to lunch and we can have a great conversation. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the issues of the day and on Free Speech TV and what we should do more or less of and what you find interesting and don't. I learn a lot from those meetings. I learn an awful lot from those meetings. Of course, I learn a lot from my callers too. But you know, it's really nice to meet people who have really made a substantial effort to help this network. And what's so surprising to me is that the vast majority, actually, of the people who've made these $1,000 gifts are not wealthy people. They're people for whom people who can afford to do it, but they're not the hoi polloi, the elite. They're people who just care a lot about this network and can make that kind of a contribution without it hurting them, which is just a great thing. So, however much you give, if it's $10, it becomes $20 today. A $30 gift becomes $60 today. A $72 gift becomes $124, $154, right? $144. 7 times 2 is 14, right? $120 gift, I never claimed the math was my strong suit. $120 gift becomes $240, and so on. You know, whatever you give, it's going to be doubled in terms of what Free Speech TV ends up with. And this is our last chance to soak up all of this matching grant. And there's a chunk of it left, a little less than $10,000. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Please call now. Take this opportunity today, the last day of the fund drive, to make your contribution and help this network stay on the air. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Please.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
And Congressman, you're still with us, right?
I am.
There you go. Okay, Dick in Seattle, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yeah, Tom and Senator. My concern is, why is the polygraph test that Dr. Ford took and passed kept such a secret? We don't hear about it yet. It's some of the best evidence, and certainly Judge Kavanaugh would not take a polygraph test because he'd fail it. He knows that. The man clearly committed an act of violence, if not rape, against this woman. And the evidence seems to continually point in that direction. So I don't think we should keep this stuff secret. Even if it's not allowed in court, we know it's highly accurate in determining when you're lying and when you're not. And she passed it. So why are we talking more about that? And I'd also like to hear Tom's source on the lies that Kavanaugh has told, because we don't hear much about that either, and I don't know what his sources were. I'd like to learn more.
Congressman?
Sure. Well, I think you raise a good point. A lie detector test isn't dispositive, but it's certainly a piece of evidence, circumstantial evidence, evidence towards credibility. And the reality is that, as you pointed out, Dr. Ford passed it, and Kavanaugh is unwilling to take it. I do think that should be a huge factor in consideration. This is why you've repeatedly heard Democratic senators saying we need to have an investigation, we need to have a more thorough hearing, we need to bring these facts out, and it can't just be the opening statements. In terms of the lies, I mean, there are numerous lies Kavanaugh has told, from his access to documents, secret documents with the White House, which he denied having. He has misrepresented parts of his judicial record. But just yesterday, I mean, his explanations for terms in his high school yearbook defied any normal sense of what the truth was. And the reality is, maybe he's embarrassed of things he put in his yearbook. One could understand that if he had owned up to it. But instead, he came up with these concocted stories that no one believed.
Brad in Chicago, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. In chronological order, let's just go forward and say Kavanaugh is confirmed. Two things. First of all, there is no statute of limitations in Maryland for rape or sexual assault. Can a Supreme Court justice be indicted? The second question, what the heck is it? Oh, it's this. It's my opinion that if the Democrats do not make political hay, like haystacks worth, of the fact that the Republicans are anti-woman and all the hypocrisies before these midterms, and if we don't win at least the House and possibly the Senate, then if they don't make the political hay they need to, they don't deserve to win those. They have to want it. And I'll take my answer off the air.
Well, I appreciate that. I certainly think a Supreme Court justice can be indicted. There's no bar on that. Obviously, Justice Department policy is that you can't indict a sitting president, but there's no such policy about a Supreme Court justice. And this could be a law enforcement matter that's investigated. But the important thing to point out is that there is a whole different standard for convicting someone in a criminal proceeding and having someone serve on the highest court of the land. One of the obfuscations of the Republicans was this idea that something has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, or that there has to be huge due process criminal rights to Judge Kavanaugh. Let's be very clear. If he weren't confirmed, his fate would have been sitting on the second highest court of the land. Judge Kavanaugh was fine. And if there is doubt, an element of doubt in a country of 300 million people, we can surely find someone who doesn't have that doubt to sit on the highest court. And this is a point that's worth making, is you could believe that the evidence is not sufficient to convict someone and put them in jail, and reasonable minds could disagree on that. But I don't think anyone can say that there isn't a shadow of doubt, a cloud of doubt, that would mean that Kavanaugh shouldn't be on the court. And I agree with you, the defiance of that and failure to listen to so many women around the country, the Democrats really need to make that case so we can take back both the House and the Senate.
Kenyatta in Redlands, California. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Congressman. Hello, Tom. I wanted to make some quick points. One of the things that I wanted to say anecdotally is that I have gone through background investigations by law enforcement at the local level, let alone federal level, and they are very, very, very thorough. And I just find it incredible that none of this has come out before. Having said that, I was very struck by the language used yesterday. When Brett Kavanaugh testified, if you will, he said that, he kind of gave this tough guy image. I played football. He kept reiterating, I lifted weights. I drink beer. And it was really weird, the macho kind of thing. And I think about that in comparison with Donald Trump, and it just seems to be a theme. I may be way out there with that, but it was interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention was him using the term judicial hit, and that was straight out of the Clarence Thomas playbook when he said high-tech lynching. I'm old enough to remember those hearings, and it was very interesting to me, the similarities in his testimony and that of Clarence Thomas. And finally, speaking of Clarence Thomas, it was interesting to me yesterday as a black man that the two black men that ultimately were referred to in these hearings, either directly or indirectly, were Bill Cosby and Clarence Thomas.
Well, that's an interesting point about that those were the only two referred to. I do think your point about Kavanaugh is right. I mean, here's someone who has viewed himself as a winner in life his whole life. He was a star athlete. He was a star student. He went to elite universities. He pledged the same fraternity that George W. Bush was part of, an elite fraternity. He worked for the president. He clerked on the Supreme Court. And so I think his emotion actually was genuine. Here's someone who's never had something go wrong in their life, and his whole dream has been to be on the Supreme Court, and he sees for the first time something not go his way. But what was just appalling is he's playing the victim card for not being on the Supreme Court. I mean, step back and think about this. It's one of the highest privileges in the nation. No one is entitled to that. But I think your observation that this is someone who has just had an entitled life is absolutely correct. And that is the sad thing, that there was more empathy for him than Dr. Ford, who didn't have quite the same privileges.
Leonard in Buffalo, New York. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
How you doing? I wanted to make a comment. My grandmother, when I was young, used to tell me, do not vote for Republicans because they'll steal the coins off a dead man's eyes. And I grew up believing that. So I vote Democratic all the time. But also, I wanted to say that doesn't Congress understand that this is coming to the breaking point, that this country is reaching to the purposes of total collapse, and that people are not there? You can only push a person so far, and they're going to stand up and they're going to punch you in the face. And my grandma used to say, before you die, you will see Republicans hanging and swinging from trees because they just do not learn when to back off, and they just want to grab everything.
Yeah, let's not even go there, Leonard. I'm going to cut you off. I don't like that kind of talk. I'm sorry, Congressman. Your thoughts?
Well, certainly we shouldn't be inciting violence, and what we should be doing is not getting into the gutter. It's inciting. Okay.
By the way, according to my notes here, what he wanted to say was that if this continues in a way that is so obviously unfair, that America might be poised for revolution.
Yeah. Well, look, I think I just came back from voting on the tax bill, and the Republicans rammed through the House a tax bill that's going to make the tax cuts on the very, very wealthy, the top 1%, permanent, and it was a party line vote. The Republicans voted for it. The Democrats opposed it. So there's no doubt that there is a systematic effort for the Republicans to benefit the wealthiest among us.
They're looting our country, sir.
I'm sorry?
They're looting our country.
They are, and I think the type of revolution we need is that the first line of Bernie Sanders' presidential announcement when he said we need a political and economic revolution in this country. I think that is absolutely right. I mean, there is huge economic inequality. There are people who are basically in the pockets of the very, very, very wealthy. But that revolution can be through the democratic process, through getting out and voting, through mobilization. That's how change is made in this country, and I'm confident that's how we're going to make a change again.
Albert in Los Angeles, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Tom. The testimony yesterday was totally credible, and when I was hearing the doctor speak, I had to immediately text my mother and say, has anything happened to you? So it's very emotional. But my question to the congressman is, how come the senators never ask questions like such? Do you believe in democracy? Who got the most votes? Do you feel ashamed to be appointed by someone who didn't get the most votes or represent the country? You know, we got to have some out-of-the-box questions that just, get to the heart of what these people think. They don't believe in democracy. Otherwise, they would do what the majority of people want done.
Sure, you're absolutely right. And, I was talking to someone today who pointed out that if Kavanaugh goes through, 4 of the 9 Supreme Court justices are going to be appointed by presidents who did not win the popular vote. 2 of them with very, very serious allegations of sexual misconduct, and they will have been approved by a Senate that represents less than a third of the actual population. So there is a counter-majoritarian sense to what the Republicans are doing in defiance of what most people want. And I do think that that's what is motivating the anger of so many Americans, and I think it's going to show up in the polls in November.
And I would add that 3 of them are going to be alumni of the Brooks Brothers riots. They were among the lawyers, the 50 lawyers that were hired to help take Bush v. Gore to the Supreme Court. John Roberts was a leader in that effort. Neil Gorsuch was part of that effort, and Brett Kavanaugh was part of that effort. So, whether the Republicans are saying, okay, we know the guys who helped steal the election for Bush are going to be reliable votes on the court, or whether this is payback, I don't know. But it boggles my mind that from that one election, we got 3 lawyers on the Supreme Court.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archive.
And Congressman Khanna, if you want to comment on that, we'll pick it up on the other side of the break. We're here with Congressman Ro Khanna. And Congressman, I'm sorry to hit a comment and then a break there. Did you want to comment on my comment?
No, I think that's a very insightful point, Tom. And I read yesterday that George W. Bush was working the phones trying to get Collins and others to vote for Kavanaugh. So it's important to realize this is not just Trumpism. This is a concerted effort of the Republican Party to put people like Kavanaugh and in the past Gorsuch, Roberts on the court, who are partisans. And that's, I mean, they have this charade that judges should just be umpires and call balls and strikes. I don't have that view of judges in the first place. I think it's a incorrect view. But on their own rhetoric, they are not picking intellects, conservative jurists at law schools who would fall into that category. They're picking people in the trenches who have done the dirty work to get the Republicans elected, and they have really turned the Supreme Court into a partisan body, and it's most evident. I think the final nail in the coffin is Kavanaugh.
Yeah, amen. Don in Portland, Oregon, you're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
You both
Don?
So much for what you've been doing. You do hear me? Are you hearing me?
Yeah, just go ahead, Don. There's
There we are.
Don't listen to your radio; you'll hear a delay.
No, I was listening to the phone. It just, my speaker didn't. I'm new. I've been listening for a long time here, and I just want to thank everybody who called in, except for a couple of bozos who give us the other side. And you guys, thank you so much for your commentary. And Tom, threshold, I got to hear that because I was on the phone. That is a brilliant theological summation. Just brilliant.
Thank you.
And it's part of the context of this. I worked as a college chaplain, as well as going to an elite university. Believe me, I know who the rape gang has been, and they are the privileged sons of power. They are not the blue-collar scholarship kids.
Congressman,
you hear me?
Yeah, hear you just fine. You want Congressman Khanna to comment on that?
Well, I want to, and I also want to say that I saw the Federalist Society at the law school, and what a bunch of intellectually empty twits.
Okay, Congressman Khanna?
I'll say, look, I'm a little embarrassed that I went to Yale Law School, and the conduct of our law school today was not a finest moment. But having gone there, I can tell you I knew the type of Kavanaugh, and it has, frankly, nothing to even do with his privileged background. It's this careerism. There were those in law school who wanted to go change the world. Some of my friends who I have the most admiration for went and did human rights work or working for civil rights. And then there were those who, saw themselves from the time they were in law school as wanting to be on the Supreme Court, wanting to be President of the United States, Secretary of State, and they would do anything to advance their career. And Kavanaugh is off that careerism perspective where he feels entitled to be part of the ruling governing class. And that's what's so concerning about him, because he has no conviction, no sense that he's going to stand for right and wrong. He's been willing to succumb to power throughout his career, whether it was the Ken Starr investigation, whether it was doing George W. Bush's work, or whether it's now repeating Trump's blanket denials because he thinks that's what's going to get him ahead.
Yeah, I think he's like Biff in Back to the Future. This is just,
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, entitled rich white kid. We'll be back with Congressman Ro Khanna right after this. Congressman Khanna is representing the 17th District of California. He's the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. You can tweet him at @RepRoKhanna, and his website is Khanna, KHANNA.house.gov. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Congressman Ro Khanna taking your calls for the hour. Chris in Oakland, California, you're on the listening on Talk 910. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Good morning, and thank you. Congressman, thank you very much for spending an hour with us and giving us your time for this kind of direct feedback and connection with our representatives. This is a wonderful thing that Tom's been doing for a while. I've been wondering about this, the worries that we have, and don't get me wrong, I think putting Kavanaugh on the court would be an absolute disaster. But Roberts, the way Roberts surprised us on the Affordable Care Act, is it possible that that the rest of the justices might not come along and it might not be as bad all the way around if he makes it on the court? And then another question, do you think that the Republican Party is damaging itself enough for a long enough time, if we look at the long game, if we can wait to have Democrats in running the Senate when it's time for Thomas to go, and maybe we can get the balance back.
Well, I appreciate, Chris, your comments. I love coming on the Hartmann Show. It's an honor to be able to do it twice a month. Let me say this. I never thought I would be nostalgic for John Roberts, and I'm nostalgic for John Roberts like I'm nostalgic for George W. Bush. They almost seem to have do worse. And Kavanaugh doesn't have the temperament that Roberts had. I think he's going to be far more partisan, far more vindictive, far more petty. But here is where it's going to come to a potential constitutional crisis. If we have a Democratic Congress and a Democratic president that passes progressive legislation on Medicare for all or net neutrality or a wealth tax, something that has overwhelming support, if you then at that point have a Supreme Court that strikes that down, and Roberts was smart enough not to strike down the Affordable Care Act. But if this Supreme Court strikes that down, that will be a constitutional crisis, and then I think you're going to have calls for expanding the court or impeaching justices. So I hope that Roberts and some of these folks will be wise enough and care enough about the Supreme Court that they won't do that, but that will be the test, whether they do start striking down progressive legislation.
Sivan in Los Angeles, listening on KPFK. If I'm saying your name wrong, please correct me. You're on the air with Congressman
No problem. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking my call. It's actually Sevak with a K. With an N, it's the female version. But quick question. So is it true that Congressman or Senator Whitehouse mentioned during the hearings that all last 73 decisions have been in favor of corporations when it was when those votes were cast by the Supreme Court?
I don't know the facts. It wouldn't surprise me if that's been the case. This court has been one of the most corporate-friendly cases in courts, and they have been eroding worker rights, eroding citizen rights when it comes to campaign finance, and they have been siding with corporations. I don't know off the top of my head if it's all 73 decisions, but it wouldn't surprise me given this court's philosophy.
Leanne in Kalamazoo, Michigan. You're on the air with Congressman Khanna.
Hi, Tom. I love your show. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
I was just astonished. I blew a whole day watching these this procedure, or the hearings yesterday, and it was astonished me that the Democrats were caught flat-footed again. And I would like for you two to weigh in on the political education we need to make true reforms in this country. Someone on MSNBC this morning said that the Republicans are willing to sacrifice 2 election cycles for the Senate even, just to continue to pack the courts or to continue to take the Supreme Court. And what we need is some praxis. I mean, I love the postmortem, but right now we need something actionable. I need you to put your true intellects, because you're two big intellects here, and think about what we can do to take next steps, because, I'm getting pretty nervous.
And Congressman, we have about a minute and a half to the end of the hour.
Well, Tom, I think we've got to mobilize our base to win back the House and win back the Senate. That's the first step. And then we need to win back the presidency because we need to realize on our side that the fight for the Supreme Court matters. The conservatives have been mobilizing their base based on that. I think we've got to realize this is an existential fight for the soul of the country on the Supreme Court. And then we need to have it on the table that we may need to expand the number of justices, that we may need to push for term limits, and that we're not going to allow a Supreme Court to be counter-majoritarian and undermine women's rights or prevent progressive legislation. We're going to take steps
to prevent that, whether that's expanding the court or term limits.
So in the last 30 seconds here, the things that we should be doing and paying attention to in this coming week or 2 weeks.
Well, I think the most urgent thing is the election. I mean, I do think after Kavanaugh and the way the hearings happen, the Senate is going to be in play. You've had suburban Republican women turned off by the whole process. So I think every Senate seat that is a battleground seat is in play. I certainly think the House is in play. And every person can make an impact, whether it's through social media, writing postcards, phone calls, to make sure that this election sends a message. Because I'll tell you, let me end on this point. If we don't do that in the election, then it ratifies in some sense what the Republicans did. They have to pay a price at the polls for their action.
Amen. Congressman, thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. It's the last day of the Free Speech TV Fund Drive, your last chance. Well, I suppose you can make donations anyway, anytime, but for this pledge drive, we need to hit this goal, and we're so far behind. And Andrew from San Diego's $15,000 match, we didn't use it all up yesterday. We only used up about $6,000 of it. So we still have a substantial match here. Every dollar you give will be matched. Every dollar you give. So please call now to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Every dollar you give will be matched by this generous gift from Andrew. It's so critical that we have this television network, particularly during these times, particularly during this very, very difficult episode in the history of the United States, as the billionaire class has risen up and taken over the Republican Party to the point that individual Republicans like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker are looking at their career opportunities down the road with right-wing think tanks, with big law firms, with polluting companies that are going to make them rich, rich, rich when they leave the Senate, if only they hang in there. And nobody else talks about it. This network is so important. 877-378-8669. Please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help. This is your last chance to get that really great feeling knowing that you gave to Free Speech TV and helped this network thrive and succeed and grow and keep on going. Plus, you have an opportunity to share your feedback. When you call and make your contribution, they take notes about what people say. And if you want to say, hey, I like this show, I don't like this show, I'd like more of this, I'd like less of that, whatever it may be, here's your chance. 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV. Please call now. With a $30 gift, you get the Free Speech TV mini kit. It's a sticker and a button. With a $72 gift, you get the first third edition. I guess it's the brand new, updated. I took a year and a half updating this book. And it's just coming out now. It's literally shipping this week. And you'll be one of the very first people to get it with the $72 gift, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I think the best of all the books that I've written, and the most important of all the books I've written. With a $120 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt kit, you get the bumper, the sticker, excuse me, the button, and the t-shirt. made in the USA, with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. It's basically the same thing, only with a hoodie instead of a T-shirt, and the sticker and the button. With a $360 gift, you get the Vote for Our Future pack. That's sort of all of the, that's the Free Speech TV logo T-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. This is a historic election coming up, and these are historic mementos. These are the kind of things that they'll be selling on eBay 10, 20, 30 years from now for absurd prices. If you look back at how election memorabilia goes, well, maybe not. Don't do this because you're hoping to make a fortune on collectibles, but I am going to be hanging on to mine. Anyhow, you get the T-shirt, you get the sweatshirt, the hoodie, you get the button, and you get the sticker. With a $480 gift, you get the all of the above package. That is my book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, the Vote Free Speech TV logo dark gray T-shirt, the zip-up hooded sweatshirt, the sticker, and the button. And with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and come hang out with us and see how we make this show, watch the sausage being made, and I'll take you to lunch and we can have a great conversation. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the issues of the day and on Free Speech TV and what we should do more or less of and what you find interesting and don't. I learn a lot from those meetings. I learn an awful lot from those meetings. Of course, I learn a lot from my callers too. It's really nice to meet people who have really made a substantial effort to help this network. And what's so surprising to me is that the vast majority, actually, of the people who've made these $1,000 gifts are not wealthy people. They're people for whom people who can afford to do it, but they're not the hoi polloi, the elite. They're people who just care a lot about this network and can make that kind of a contribution without it hurting them, which is just a great thing. So, however much you give, if it's $10, it becomes $20 today. A $30 gift becomes $60 today. A $72 gift becomes $124, $154, right? $144. 7 times 2 is 14, right? $120 gift, I never claimed the math was my strong suit. A $120 gift becomes $240, and so on. Whatever you give, it's going to be doubled in terms of what Free Speech TV ends up with. And this is our last chance to soak up all of this matching grant. And there's a chunk of it left, a little less than $10,000. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Please call now. Take this opportunity today, the last day of the fund drive, to make your contribution and help this network stay on the air. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Please. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. We just had Congressman Ro Khanna on for the hour, taking your calls about the whole Kavanaugh thing and Christine Blasey Ford and little Mr. Entitled. There is a nationwide effort going on right now
to get people to the offices of their U.S. senators. And you can typically look on the website for your U.S. senator. The way that they do these website URLs is it's the last name of the senator .senate.gov. So it would be, Blumenthal.senate.gov, Grassley.senate.gov. They're all the same. And on those websites, you will find the addresses of the local offices, and there may be one near you. This is just a nationwide mobilization that is happening right now. This is a big deal, and we all need to be paying attention to it. Brett Kavanaugh, probably the smallest things that he lied about were the meanings of boof and devil's triangle. The largest things where he lied about, what he knew about George and his involvement with George W. Bush in torture. He lied about his involvement with stolen Democratic notes on the confirmation of judges. He participated in the 2000 campaign as one of the lawyers to argue before the Supreme Court that Al Gore should not have a recount in Florida. We now know that that recount would have certified that Al Gore actually won the 2000 election, which set up so much of this. And then the George W. Bush presidency, of course, taking down Iraq and Afghanistan, basically devastated the world. We also know that the Republican staffers have blocked Deborah Ramirez and I'm forgetting the name of the third person, Swetnick, I believe is her name, Julie Swetnick, have blocked her from being able to testify yesterday before the United States Senate. And we know that the prosecutor that the Republicans had brought in, Rachel Mitchell, when she began to interrogate Brett Kavanaugh about July 1st on his calendar, where he said he was going to a party to have brewskis with Mark Judge and TJ and this other guy who Christine Ford said were there. That was the moment that Lindsey Graham did his job audition for Donald Trump about, I want to be your next attorney general. I want to replace Jeff Sessions when you fire him on November 10th or November 7th. And, sent the whole thing off the rails. So obviously she was getting close to the truth, and that flipped them out. In other news about women, very quickly, and then I want to bring in Shane Bauer. Today is the day that Crystal Mason, a 43-year-old black woman in Texas, begins a 5-year sentence in prison for voting while black and a convicted felon. She did not know that as a felon she could not vote. She thought it was her civic duty. She was so inspired by Hillary Clinton running for president that she showed up to vote. Her name was not on the rolls because she was a felon. Her name had been purged from the rolls. And so she cast a provisional ballot, which was never counted. Nonetheless, the Republican leadership of the state of Texas has decided to put her in prison for 5 years by way of saying to black people broadly and anybody who's ever had any problem with the law, because most people don't know, hey, was that speeding ticket a felony or was it a misdemeanor? Can I vote or not? This is another Republican voter suppression effort. And then the story of Alba Lorena Rodriguez. She was 5 months pregnant in December of 2009 when she fainted. She was having horrible pains in her stomach. She was pregnant. She was 5 months pregnant. She miscarried, and she held a wake for the child who she miscarried, for the fetus that she lost. She was in mourning, and the police showed up and put her in prison. She is now in the 8th year of her 30-year sentence for illegally having an abortion. This is in El Salvador, where abortion is illegal. This is where Brett Kavanaugh wants to take us, and it is insane. Shane Bauer is on the line with us. Shane is an investigative journalist, senior writer with Mother Jones, author of the new book, American Prison. He's been on our program before. Shane Bauer, BAUER.net is the website. You can tweet him at Shane_Bauer. And Shane, brilliant book. Welcome back to the program, first of all.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for joining us. So, you were put in prison in Iran for inadvertently crossing the border, but then you came back to the United States and you got a job as a prisoner in a private prison, kind of went underground, and that, I believe, is the essence of this book, of the horrors of the private prison system.
And tell us about it.
Yeah, I got out of prison myself in 2011, came back to the U.S., and assumed I would go back to the Middle East to do, which is where I was working as a reporter, but kind of got pulled into the U.S. prison system, where we have 25% of the world's prison population, and spent a few years writing about prisons and criminal justice in the U.S., and was constantly frustrated by the difficulty in getting access to prisons here. And I was interested in corporate-run prisons, and we had very kind of little sense of what life was like inside of these places, because they're very good at keeping journalists out. So I applied on the corporate website for a job. I didn't honestly think it was going to work, partially because I filled out the application truthfully, including my current employer and my job history. But within a couple of weeks, I was getting phone calls and was doing job interviews and had multiple offers for jobs in prisons around the country.
Wow. Your new book is, by the way, titled American Prison. Did I catch this? Yeah, I have not. We just got the book yesterday afternoon. I have not had an opportunity to read it. But I did read some of the material that came along with it, that the whole idea of private prisons goes back to ancient Rome, but was a big deal in the southern states during and after Reconstruction?
Private prisons actually started here in the U.S. In fact, the penitentiaries themselves started in the U.S. We've had jails since the early civilization where people would be held before going to trial. But the idea of the imprisonment itself being punishment started here in this country. And really the first penitentiaries were intended to make a profit. And through the use of prison labor was contracted to private contractors in the Northeast. And then in the South, when the South opened penitentiaries, they were essentially factories, and they were used to produce clothing that was sold at a discount to planters to use for slaves. So it's kind of a subsidy to the slavery system. But after the Civil War, the prison system throughout the South was entirely privatized. Companies would put their prisoners on plantations or in labor camps and force them to work. Essentially, they were replacing the role of slaves, and this went on for decades. And this system, known as convict leasing, was actually more deadly than slavery. The death rates, the annual death rates throughout the South ranged from 16 to 25%, quarter of the prisoners dying every year in some states. And eventually, states at this time, I should say, it wasn't just that companies were making a lot of money. The states also were. Alabama was making 10% of its budget at one point through leasing of prisoners. So states were very hooked on this kind of system. But eventually, they essentially cut out the middleman, bought plantations of their own, put prisoners to work on these plantations, where they would be whipped and tortured for not meeting quotas. And all of the money would go into state treasuries. And it was really in this system that the founder of the Corrections Corporation of America, which ran the prison I went undercover in, started his career. Terrell Don Hutto ran a plantation prison in Texas starting in 1967, where inmates were forced to pick cotton on a plantation the size of Manhattan. He lived on the plantation with his family. They had what were called houseboys that served him and his family. He went on to run plantation prisons in Arkansas at a profit to the state. And eventually he was approached by a couple of businessmen who, noticed him for his ability to run prisons at a profit. And they proposed the idea to him that they start a corporation called the Corrections Corporation of America that would be traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
And what has happened since then?
Well, now the company is a $1.4 billion company. The private prison industry in general is about a $4 billion industry. It runs prisons all over the country. The private prison industry controls about 8% of the national prison population and 2/3 of immigrant detention centers. The immigrant detention is kind of their growth area right now.
Shane, we have about a minute left. Is there any effort by anybody to push back on this, to change the dynamic of this?
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's big divestment campaigns. The federal government, even at the end of the Obama administration, announced that they would stop using private prisons. That was, of course, changed by the Trump administration. But there have been significant pushes to end private prisons, and I think that is, not a controversial position at this point.
Yeah. It seems like something we should definitely be paying attention to. Shane Bauer, his new book, American Prison, and the subtitle, A Reporter's Undercover Journey into the Business of Punishment. Shane, thanks for dropping by today.
Thank you.
Great talking with you, and good luck with the book. I hope it goes far and wide. It's a marvelous piece of writing. We'll be back with your calls and my thoughts and the news of the day here in just a moment. It's 17 minutes past the hour.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Actually, now it's 18 minutes past the hour. Back with your calls on this Friday as we kind of mourn the loss of our Supreme Court and figure out what to do next. And welcome back. Bob, watching Free Speech TV in Chicago. Hey, Bob, you're on the air. What's up?
Hi. First of all, I wanted to wish you congratulations. I've been watching and listening to your program for the better part of 10 years or more.
Wow.
And it seems to me that you've been getting more right-wing trolls than I ever recall, which means that they fear you. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, our show is probably 3 times larger now than it was 5 years ago. It's really expanding, and therefore.
Yeah, I just wanted to have mentioned 2 things. A note of confusion on my part. Congressman Rokan, I had mentioned about permanent tax law being permanent. And I'm confused. Does that mean that no new legislation can be made to reverse it?
No.
No,
it can be reversed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is about Kavanaugh.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does not make it as a justice, another nominee, pretty much with the same belief system that he has, it lies in wait. So, on one hand, as much as it disgusts me to think, I'm wondering if it's better to get him in there because it leaves a better possibility of impeaching him. Because I don't know what the other person nominee may be.
The next nominee would be Amy Coney Barrett, according to all the observers, and she is a hardcore right-wing Catholic who vehemently opposes even birth control.
Well, right, but she may be cleaner as far as she doesn't have, as far as I know, any perjury or anything against her.
Right.
But in regards to that being the impeachment, is the method exactly the same as a president? Because does it also involve bringing in the Supreme Court to impeach a justice?
If a Supreme Court justice is being impeached, I don't know if the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court would be the presiding officer in the Senate or not. But I do know that it would require a 2/3 vote of the Senate and a majority vote of the House of Representatives to remove them from office.
Which is why I would hope that, a show like yours and other progressive organizations would really, really push as hard as possible to get Democrats to completely dominate Congress and, of course, the White House.
Yeah, we don't need a blue wave. We need a blue tsunami.
Yes. Unfortunately, the Senate, I don't think it's going to happen this time, but in the next election, I think that it would definitely has a possibility. And I don't know what the situation is going to happen with Trump. I keep hearing that he'll get reelected if he doesn't get impeached. But I have a hard time believing that, considering how much discontent is out there about this administration.
Oh, he won by losing 3 million votes. You know, the Republicans control the House of Representatives when the Democrats got 53% of the vote nationwide. The Republicans control the Senate when they represent just slightly over 30% of the American electorate. The system is rigged, and one of the major riggings is, you know, in the last 5 years, over 3 million people, mostly Democratic-leaning minorities, have been purged from the voting rolls across the country. I mean, this is what we're facing. So we've got to get out in disproportionate numbers, Bob. We've really got to get out there and do this. Bob, thank you for the call and for your kind words. We'll be right back. It's 22 minutes past the hour. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, you know, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Okay, let's pick up your thoughts on what's going on here. Steve in Minneapolis. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Hey, Tom, nice to hear from you again. I'm wondering, in regards to the 8th District Court, is Merrick Garland Kavanaugh's boss right now? And
yes.
If he doesn't make it to the Supreme Court, can the 8th District Court do anything against him and all the lies he's submitted to the Congress?
Yeah, it's not the 8th Circuit, it's the D.C. Circuit. It's its own unique little, you know, I think it might theoretically be numbered 1, but maybe I'm wrong on that. But in any case, the D.C. Circuit, which deals with basically any lawsuit that involves the federal government, which resides in the District of Columbia. And yes, Merrick Garland is sort of his boss. Merrick Garland is the Chief Justice of the D.C. Circuit Court, and as such, he has some say over the calendar and over the cases. Although, just like the U.S. Supreme Court, I believe that those cases are granted cert, are granted the right, the status to be heard before the court by a certain number of justices. I don't know the math on the D.C. court. You know, on the U.S. Supreme Court, it takes 4 judges to say yes, we want to hear this case. You know, so Garland isn't his boss in that he can fire him, or that he can relegate him to the outer, you know, to the outer darkness. But it certainly is mind-bogglingly ironic. Steve, thanks a lot for the call. Keno in Lakeland, Florida. Hey, Keno, what's up?
Hey, this is Keno, the moose herder Republican that wants reform in the Republican Party. We have a message to send to Senator Sass. Right now, he's with a...
Ben Sass on the Judiciary Committee, the Republican from Nebraska?
Yeah, he's going in there to vote now. Now, this is a message. If he votes now for Kavanaugh, we want him to vote against Kavanaugh in the general election, because right now it's a bunch of chimpanzees over there. And, of course, Lindsey, he was the biggest unmated male chimpanzee throwing a temper tantrum. But I want Republicans, I want Sass and Marco Rubio and Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins and Lamar Alexander to turn from chimpanzees into a pride of lions to bring down the old rogue elephant later. But they change from chimpanzees. Don't vote with the chimpanzees, because Lindsey, Graham, he was a big chimpanzee throwing stuff around and doing a temper
Keno, why
tantrum.
don't you just leave the Republican Party and become a Democrat?
I'm not going to retreat. I have ideals for Abraham Lincoln, and Teddy Roosevelt is my hero. And for Teddy Roosevelt, I'm going to try.
But Teddy
to do my
Roosevelt
best.
was a
It may be
progressive.
Maybe like tilting at windmills, but I got to try to do my best. I asked the Republicans, those groups, to form a pride of lions and change from chimpanzees.
Yeah, I get it, but Teddy Roosevelt was a progressive. You know, we had progressive Republican senators right up until the 1970s, but with Reagan's election, the party began purging them. This was when the billionaires took over the Republican Party, and now they completely own it.
Well, they have turned indecent. Now, you know, bullies start with small, little disrespectful things, and then they escalate. And so that's what they're doing now. They're seeing what they can get away with, but the whole world is going to see these chimpanzees will not prevail. We will have a constitutional amendment that selected presidents, one that was selected and not elected with a majority vote.
I get it. Keno, we're out of time, but thank you. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's Friday. We're kind of processing our shock at what the Republicans are doing right now on the Judiciary Committee. It's mind-boggling. It's the last day of the Free Speech TV Fund Drive, your last chance. Well, I suppose you can make donations anyway, anytime, but for this pledge drive, we need to hit this goal, and we're so far behind. And Andrew from San Diego's $15,000 match, we didn't use it all up yesterday. We only used up about $6,000 of it. So we still have a substantial match here. Every dollar you give will be matched. Every dollar you give. So please call now to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Every dollar you give will be matched by this generous gift from Andrew. It's so critical that we have this television network, particularly during these times, particularly during this very, very difficult episode in the history of the United States, as the billionaire class has risen up and taken over the Republican Party to the point that individual Republicans like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker are looking at their career opportunities down the road with right-wing think tanks, with big law firms, with polluting companies that are going to make them rich, rich, rich when they leave the Senate, if only they hang in there. And nobody else talks about it. This network is so important. 877-378-8669. Please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help. This is your last chance to get that really great feeling knowing that you gave to Free Speech TV and helped this network thrive and succeed and grow and keep on going. Plus, you have an opportunity to share your feedback. When you call and make your contribution, they take notes about what people say. And if you want to say, hey, I like this show, I don't like this show, I'd like more of this, I'd like less of that, whatever it may be, here's your chance. 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV. Please call now. With a $30 gift, you get the Free Speech TV mini kit. It's a sticker and a button. With a $72 gift, you get the first third edition. I guess it's the brand new, updated. I took a year and a half updating this book. And it's just coming out now. It's literally shipping this week. And you'll be one of the very first people to get it with a $72 gift, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I think the best of all the books that I've written, and the most important of all the books I've written. With a $120 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt kit, you get the bumper, the sticker, the button, and the t-shirt made in the USA with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. It's basically the same thing, only with a hoodie instead of a t-shirt, and the sticker and the button. With a $360 gift, you get the Vote for Our Future pack. That's sort of all of the, that's the Free Speech TV logo t-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. This is a historic election coming up, and these are historic mementos. These are the kind of things that they'll be selling on eBay 10, 20, 30 years from now for absurd prices. If you look back at how
election memorabilia goes. Well, maybe not. Don't do this because you're hoping to make a fortune on collectibles, but I am going to be hanging on to mine. Anyhow, you get the T-shirt, you get the sweatshirt, the hoodie, you get the button, and you get the sticker. With a $480 gift, you get the all of the above package. That is my book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, the Vote Free Speech TV logo dark gray T-shirt, the zip-up hooded sweatshirt, the sticker, and the button. And with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and come hang out with us and see how we make this show, watch the sausage being made, and I'll take you to lunch and we can have a great conversation. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the issues of the day and on Free Speech TV and what we should do more or less of and what you find interesting and don't. I learn a lot from those meetings. I learn an awful lot from those meetings. Of course, I learn a lot from my callers too. It's really nice to meet people who have really made a substantial effort to help this network. And what's so surprising to me is that the vast majority, actually, of the people who've made these $1,000 gifts are not wealthy people. They're people for whom people who can afford to do it, but they're not the hoi polloi, the elite. They're people who just care a lot about this network and can make that kind of a contribution without it hurting them, which is just a great thing. So, however much you give, if it's $10, it becomes $20 today. A $30 gift becomes $60 today. A $72 gift becomes $124, $154, right? $144. 7 times 2 is 14, right? $120 gift, I never claimed the math was my strong suit. A $120 gift becomes $240, and so on. Whatever you give, it's going to be doubled in terms of what Free Speech TV ends up with. And this is our last chance to soak up all of this matching grant. And there's a chunk of it left, a little less than $10,000. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Please call now. Take this opportunity today, the last day of the fund drive, to make your contribution and help this network stay on the air. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Please.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. So some of the headlines from Daily Kos today, just, by way of here's what's going on. Lindsey Graham and the good old boys say Dr. Ford has, quote, a problem, end quote, and that she needs to, quote, get therapy. Number one. Number two, Republicans blocked the testimony of Deborah Ramirez from being heard by the Senate committee. Number three, Lindsey Graham's rage was a threat to his fellow Republicans. Close ranks now or else. Number four, Republicans ditched their female assistant after questions about a key entry in Kavanaugh's calendar. That would be July 1st. The next headline from Daily Kos, John Cornyn, the Republican senator from Texas. It's cruel to make Mark Judge testify because he has anxiety. Like Christine Blasey Ford talked about her anxiety. Oh, my God. And off topic of the hearings, but I think this is a big deal. 64 days after a federal judge's deadline, 136 kidnapped migrant children are still subject to child abuse at the hands of our government. They are still separated from their parents. This is criminal. So, back to your calls. Tony in Huntsville, Alabama. Hey, Tony, what's up?
Tom, you're my hero. What I saw you do on Bill Maher is epic.
Well, thank
I loved
you.
it.
Thank you. It's a great show.
Yes, it was. You were talking the other day about socialism, and you said the only thing that would be left is the military and the police. In lieu of your last conversation with the gentleman about the private prisons, and I'm very with this. This is where they're headed with packing the Supreme Court the way they're doing. As a black man in the South, this doesn't help me at all.
Yeah, or any of the rest of us. But yeah, it falls particularly hard on you and also black women.
Yeah, I mean, all they want to do, and I've been in a private prison. They moved us from Alabama to Louisiana to a private prison.
Right.
And they didn't even do nothing. They just said, hey, you guys can do what you want to do. We want to make you guys happy because, you know, everybody's overpaid, making tons of money, and corporations making lots of money. You guys are going to get extra long sentences, of course, because the shareholders have to make money.
Right.
I mean, this absolutely makes no sense. It's a slap in the face. It's not even justice. And what we saw from Kavanaugh yesterday looked like that man needed a drug test.
Yeah. Well,
he
dry drunk. I mean, assuming he hadn't had a drink before he went in yesterday, he was a classic dry drunk. He was the classic, person who, I mean, here he is saying, no, I don't have anger problems when I drink. And you're like, really? I'm sorry, Tony, I interrupted you.
And an old hamburger under a heat lamp. I mean, just the guy was just so flat out. And I'm looking at this thinking, you know what? They're going to pack the court. They're going to do all they can to pack more people into these prisons. And I'm part of a prayer group here in Alabama, and I was asking the people, I said, listen, who's praying for those kids that are in those prisons? And it got really political. It turned sideways. I'm thinking, if we're going in to pray for inmates, why not pray for those children? I got some really crazy responses, but this is just where it's headed. Law enforcement and white privilege. I've learned, Tom, that there's layers of white privilege. I thought everybody had it. No, everybody don't have it. They're showing you who had it. When this man says, I did this and I did this and I did this, I thought he was going to say, hey, I created the earth and I never even rested on the seventh day. That's how good I am, you know?
Well, he was bragging about class privilege as much as white privilege. And, and those two things are typically entangled, but sometimes they're disentangled. But class privilege is something we almost never talk about in the United States.
It will display how it will.
Yeah. Tony, I'm sorry, your phone has fallen. Your phone just fell apart. I've lost you. But, thank you for the call. It's always good to hear from you, and you always have something very, very insightful to say. Nicholas in Lexington, Kentucky. Hey, Nicholas, what's up?
Mr. Hartman, how are you? This is
well.
Nicholas, who usually calls me from Mexico.
Oh, cool. You're back in the country.
Yeah. God help me. I'm in Kentucky for the month. Oh, boy.
Yep. So what's up there?
This
Nicholas.
is just something to share with you that a friend shared with me last night, a retired professor of law and American history at the university here, and his very smart wife as well. After about 3 hours of conversation about those hearings yesterday, I said, is there any takeaway you have, any simple way of wrapping up your overall feeling as to what has happened in our country? And he said, and I about fell off the sofa, and he said, yes. He said, this is what happens when the fringe becomes the fabric.
Yeah, absolutely. What we are looking at,
right?
and let's make no bones about it, what we are looking at is the final stage of the billionaire takeover of the United States of America.
I absolutely agree. They are desperate.
Yes. Well, they're not desperate. They're actually controlling the process. If they get Kavanaugh in this court, then they don't care if they lose the House or Senate for the next 20 years, because Kavanaugh is going to be there for the next 40 years.
I agree. They understand the importance of the Supreme Court far better than some of our quote-unquote players do, which is horrifying. We need to step the game up significantly.
Yeah, no, the Supreme Court has been the whole game. I mean, it was the game with Bush v. Gore. It was the game,
Citizens United.
Yeah, all of this stuff. Yeah. It's all been about the Supreme Court. Nicholas, I want to get some more calls in, but thank you. Spot on. David in Charlotte, North Carolina says you disagree with me, David, about what?
Yeah, about the whole Brett Kavanaugh thing. When I was in the military, I was actually accused of sexual assault as well. And, everybody has been saying, do the investigation, and then, that way you can prosecute them for lying. The person who claimed sexual assault against me was an ex, and she said that I snuck into her room like I had done before, but then I assaulted her because she didn't want to do anything. And I was actually in another part of the country on a military exercise, So it was a practical impossibility.
So if the FBI had interviewed her and you under penalty of perjury, and you had testified honestly and she had continued lying, she'd be in jail right now. What's wrong with that?
She did continue lying, and nothing happened to her.
Yeah, well, that's not unusual in domestic situations. David, I get it that sometimes there are false charges made, particularly in domestic disputes. That's the area that is the most dicey. But that doesn't mean that Brett Kavanaugh, who is accused of trying to rape, I just don't see a one-to-one correlation here or anything even close to it. Sunday in Newcastle, Wyoming. Hey, Sunday, what's on your mind?
Question. What would happen if all of the Democrats refused to cast a vote for or against Kavanaugh until they provide all of the background information from his Bush years and talk to the rest of the people that they've refused to talk to? Wouldn't that leave it, if they went ahead and promoted him, put him in office, wouldn't that be grounds for an appeal since none of the Democrats voted?
No, there's a quorum. As long as the Republicans have a majority, they have a quorum. The Senate only requires a simple majority, and they have a quorum. The big question on the Kavanaugh nomination is going to be, and frankly, I think that even there's probably a few Republicans who are doing this calculus right now. They've got an open seat. And if they can hold the Senate, well, even if they lose the Senate in November, the new Senate doesn't get sworn in until January, and Mitch McConnell can call the Senate back into session anytime he wants. And so there's probably a few Republicans on the committee, or not just on the committee, but larger, writ large, who are saying, if this guy gets on the court, he's damaged goods. Amy Coney Barrett will be just as destructive as Brett Kavanaugh to the individual rights of citizens, to the Civil Rights Act, to the Voting Rights Act, on behalf. He'll be just as destructive to America on behalf of the billionaires who own big refineries and want to pollute, who own coal and oil operations and want to pollute and poison people, the big employers who want to have unsafe workplaces because it's cheaper. To suppress the minimum wage, to blow up Social Security, to blow up Medicare, to do away with any kind of national health care program. Amy Barrett will be just as competent at that, and she will be unimpeachable. She's a woman. And to overthrow Roe v. Wade and criminalize abortion in the United States and start imprisoning women who have miscarriages like they do in El Salvador. And they have to be thinking, it might be better for the billionaires probably are having this conversation with some of them, this guy's damaged goods. Let's just, we'll finish the process. We'll get the vote out of committee. And a couple of Republicans are going to come forward, particularly if they're in a tight race, if this is turning into an electoral issue, they're going to come forward and say, I'm not comfortable with this. And they're going to pull the nomination and Trump will put out somebody else. And they can still get them, because they still have this absolute majority until January, no matter whether they lose the Senate or not. They can still get them through, before the consequences of the midterms are done and probably even before the midterms. So go ahead.
Wouldn't it make a definite statement, though, if they refuse to vote?
It would, in a moral universe, if all the Democrats protested. But I think that what would happen is the Republicans would say, see, they're proving that we're right. We won. We're in charge now. The Democrats have given up and gone home. So we're going to take charge and we're going to do everything we want to do. That's my guess of how it would play out Sunday. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to happen. But let's keep an eye on it. I think, you're right about the moral, strong position. Sunday, thanks for the call.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
We're going to check in with Talk Media News. No, it'll be an hour from now. Okay, we'll be back with your calls right after this. It's 45 minutes past the hour. And welcome back. Mary in Grifton, North Carolina, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Mary, what's on your mind today?
Well, what's on my mind, I'm thinking I'm crazy sometimes. When Brett Kavanaugh was being questioned by the Senate last week, the senators, whatever you want to call them, every time somebody asked him a question, he replied with, "That is a hypothetical question, and I can't." Why didn't he just say, "I take the Fifth Amendment"? It would have saved a whole lot of time.
Yeah, well, mostly what he was doing yesterday was saying, "How dare you challenge me? I went to Georgetown Prep. I went to Yale Law School. I played basketball. I am a rich white man. How dare you ask?" That's what I got from yesterday.
You are taking those words. That was my very. I had written them. I had written my questions down because I'm old and I forget things. But all day yesterday, that little fit tantrum he threw was, "How dare you question me? I am privileged. I got money. You have no rights."
Yep.
You're exactly right. Can't people see that? What's wrong with people? They want somebody like that on the Supreme Court.
I think all across America, Mary, people saw that. And I think that if the Republicans put this guy on the court, and right now I think it's probably 50-50, but, there's, like I said, there's just as bad right behind him, just not with all the baggage. But if the Republicans put this guy on the Supreme Court, I could make an argument that that would actually be a destructive thing for the Republican Party. And America, and particularly the women of America are going to say, okay, that's it. We've had enough. And that's why I think the committee has not even had its vote.
You said that a while ago when I was listening to you. I thought if they put him on the Supreme Court and if an investigation is done and found out that he is lying, couldn't he be impeached or fired or whatever?
Yes, he could be impeached. It would take 2/3 of the Senate, though, to remove him from office, which, is a really, really high bar. Once he's on the court, just like Clarence Thomas, who also lied during his confirmation hearings, and John Roberts, who lied during his confirmation hearings, once he's on the court, it's pretty much a done deal. And
I remembered Thomas very distinctly, 91, 92. I watched those.
Yeah.
And I felt so sorry for Anita, the lady that was
Anita Hill,
testifying against him. I always felt like he was lying about her.
Yes. Well, I think it was fairly obvious that he was lying to her, and it was fairly obvious to much of America. And by the way, did you know, Mary, that the reason Dianne Feinstein decided to run for the Senate in 1992 was because of Clarence Thomas's testimony?
Bless her heart.
All across America, the Time magazine named it the Year of the Woman. All across America, women were jumping into politics. It was the first major wave of women into politics. The second major wave is happening right now in this election cycle, with women jumping into politics as a consequence of the election of Donald Trump.
Well, that's a good thing, but
I
want to see some men jumping in. I would like to know that some men out there have some plain old common horse sense.
Yep. Yeah, that seems to be in short supply on the Republican side. Well, actually, these Republicans know exactly what they're doing. If they vote the way that the billionaires want them to vote, they will be protected. They'll have multi-million-dollar jobs when they leave Congress. The billionaires will pour hundreds of millions of dollars into their election campaigns, and they get to keep their power and their wealth and their prestige and their status and their privilege. And if they go against the billionaires, they're toast, which is why Flake and Corker have not left the Republican Party, even though the Republican Party has rejected them. Because the billionaires, it's no longer a political party. It is now the billionaires' party. Mary, thank you for the call. We'll be right back. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Welcome back. Your thoughts on what the spectacle that we're watching right now. As I was just saying a minute ago, I am of the opinion that if the Republicans successfully put Kavanaugh on the court, they may be hurting themselves, and because Kavanaugh is so impeachable. And not that he would be successfully impeached, but there'll always be this cloud over him. And Amy Coney, I believe her name, Barrett, is up next, and she's just as toxic, in fact, arguably more so than he is. She's at least upfront about it and honest about it. And I'm wondering if the billionaires are saying to their vassals, to the Republicans who they own, and they wholly own them, lock, stock, and soul, if they're saying to them, let's figure out a way to, save a little face, but get Kavanaugh out. Maybe we'll talk to him and have him resign, and we'll make sure that he's got a nice multi-million-dollar job when he resigns from the federal bench or whatever. And let's get somebody else in who's not as controversial. And if that happens, it would make a lot of sense. Norma in Montgomery, Alabama. Hey, Norma, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Dr. Tom. You remember that this list that was handed to Trump of prospective Supreme Court judges came from the Federalist Society.
Correct.
I got curious, and if I'm reading this correctly, Senator Hatch's son is on the board of directors. And is that a conflict of interest for him to vote? Or how many of these men are members of this society? You can pull up the chapters for your state and see who is a member, and then start asking yourself questions. Who are these people, and what do they control in my life?
Yeah. I don't think legally it's a conflict of interest. I certainly think ethically it is, but ethics mean nothing to the Republican Party.
Yes, okay.
By and large, law means nothing to them.
Yeah, and so, but should these people who are members of this society be able to control the Supreme Court? In the past, the nominations the list of people for the president to look at have always come from the American Bar Association.
Right.
And instead, we have a private organization handing a list to the president as like, here, you will choose what we want, and the people do not matter.
And they already have, the Federalist Society already has 4 judges on the court. They will soon have a 5th.
I know, and so we the people have nothing. We the people will, and when, say if Ruth Bader Ginsburg or Thomas were to leave, they would have total control of it, and they'll eventually have 9, and this will be a dictatorship, and we will have a new constitution. And will I even be allowed to own property or vote as a woman?
Good question. Good question. Norma, I keep saying this, we're looking at the cancer stage of capitalism. This is the end stage of the billionaire takeover of America. And Brett Kavanaugh is a toady for the billionaires. Every single Republican senator on that committee is a toady for the billionaires, because the billionaires have now built a political machine. The Americans for Prosperity and the other groups that are funded by the Koch brothers and their billionaire buddies, they have built a political machine that has more money, more employees, more offices, and is more active than the entire Republican Party itself. The Republican Party, as John Boehner pointed out, no longer exists.
Yeah. Are you watching MSNBC by any chance?
I have it on the screen. It's muted because I'm on the air, but I can see it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what's going on, but
they're trying to delay the vote. Jeff Flake wants to delay the vote.
Yes, and see, I was wondering why would Joni Ernst from Grassley's junior senator, would she follow in the steps of this old man? She used to be military, and military women have been a free prey for soldiers for years. How many rapes did she know about? If this goes to a vote, would she stand up for women? She's up for re-election in 2020. And nobody is bothering to look at their senator and see who is up for election this year. 33 of them are.
Yeah.
And do you want these men to come back? These, like Richard Shelby, we tried to get rid of him here in Alabama. We couldn't do it. And he's 84. And so these old men, good grief, Tom, we're in our 60s. We've watched this mess.
Yeah. Yeah. With regard to Joni Ernst, I don't know. It's interesting that you bring her up, because this morning when Louise and I were getting up and, starting our day, it just popped into my head. I said to Louise, I wonder what Joni Ernst is thinking right now. And she was like, Joni Ernst, what I didn't know she was a swing vote on this thing. And I'm like, I haven't heard from her at all. I mean, we don't know. Maybe she is, maybe she isn't.
I know, but, she needs to think about this, because she is, they are having a change in Iowa. people are starting to wake up. And
in part because
Democrats.
in part because of the trade policies. You got farmers getting whacked, and now Trump is having to give them $12 billion.
Yes, we just borrowed the money from China because China won't buy our stuff to give to the farmers.
Right.
This makes no sense.
No, it's called buying elections.
Yes. And so these farmers, they're mega farmers, and there's no telling who owns the mega farmers.
Yeah, they're not even farmers. It's a half. It's 5 multi-billion-dollar multinational agricultural corporations.
Yes, and so we could be giving the money we borrowed from China to a mega farm that is owned by France or Saudi Arabia. This makes no sense.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. Thanks a lot, Norma. It's always great to hear from you. Updated, Facebook network is breached, putting 50 million users' data at risk. Facebook just announced that their computer network has exposed the personal information of nearly 50 million users. So heads up, you might want to get onto Facebook and change your password right now. We'll be back with more of your calls, my thoughts, the news of the day. We'll see what's going on here. It's getting real interesting. They're trying to. Jeff Flake, who is the swing vote now among the Republicans on the Judiciary Committee, is saying maybe we should have a delay.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com. It's the last day of the Free Speech TV Fund Drive, your last chance. Well, I suppose you can make donations anyway, anytime, but for this pledge drive, we need to hit this goal, and we're so far behind. And Andrew from San Diego's $15,000 match, we didn't use it all up yesterday. We only used up about $6,000 of it. So we still have a substantial match here. Every dollar you give will be matched. Every dollar you give. So please call now to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Every dollar you give will be matched by this generous gift from Andrew. It's so critical that we have this television network, particularly during these times, particularly during this very, very difficult episode in the history of the United States, as the billionaire class has risen up and taken over the Republican Party to the point that individual Republicans like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker are looking at their career opportunities down the road with right-wing think tanks, with big law firms, with polluting companies that are going to make them rich, rich, rich when they leave the Senate if only they hang in there. And nobody else talks about it. This network is so important 877-378-8669. Please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help. This is your last chance to get that really great feeling knowing that you gave to Free Speech TV and helped this network thrive and succeed and grow and keep on going. Plus, you have an opportunity to share your feedback. When you call and make your contribution, they take notes about what people say. And if you want to say, hey, I like this show, I don't like this show, I'd like more of this, I'd like less of that, whatever it may be, here's your chance. 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV. Please call now. With a $30 gift, you get the Free Speech TV mini kit. It's a sticker and a button. With a $72 gift, you get the first third edition. I guess it's the brand new, updated. I took a year and a half updating this book. And it's just coming out now. It's literally shipping this week. And you'll be one of the very first people to get it with the $72 gift, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I think the best of all the books that I've written, and the most important of all the books I've written. With a $120 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt kit, you get the the sticker, the button, and the t-shirt made in the USA with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. It's basically the same thing, only with a hoodie instead of a t-shirt, and the sticker and the button. With a $360 gift, you get the Vote for Our Future pack. That's sort of all of that's the Free Speech TV logo t-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. This is a historic election coming up, and these are historic mementos. These are the kind of things that they'll be selling on eBay 10, 20, 30 years from now for absurd prices. If you look back at how election memorabilia goes, well, maybe not. Don't do this because you're hoping to make a fortune on collectibles, but I am going to be hanging on to mine. Anyhow, you get the t-shirt, you get the sweatshirt, the hoodie, you get the button, and you get the sticker. With a $480 gift, you get the all of the above package. That is my book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, the Vote Free Speech TV logo dark gray t-shirt, the zip-up hooded sweatshirt, the sticker, and the button. And with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and come hang out with us and see how we make this show, watch the sausage being made, and I'll take you to lunch and we can have a great conversation, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the issues of the day and on Free Speech TV and what we should do more or less of and what you find interesting and don't. I learn a lot from those meetings. I learn an awful lot from those meetings. Of course, I learn a lot from my callers too. It's really nice to meet people who have really made a substantial effort to help this network. And what's so surprising to me is that the vast majority, actually, of the people who've made these $1,000 gifts are not wealthy people. They're people for whom people who can afford to do it, but they're not the hoi polloi, the elite. They're people who just care a lot about this network and can make that kind of a contribution without it hurting them, which is just a great thing. So, however much you give, if it's $10, it becomes $20 today. A $30 gift becomes $60 today. A $72 gift becomes $124, $154, right? $144. 7 times 2 is 14, right? $120 gift, I never claimed the math was my strong suit. A $120 gift becomes $240, and so on. Whatever you give, it's going to be doubled in terms of what Free Speech TV ends up with. And this is our last chance to soak up all of this matching grant. And there's a chunk of it left, a little less than $10,000. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Please call now. Take this opportunity today, the last day of the fund drive, to make your contribution and help this network stay on the air. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Please.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. What just happened in the Senate Judiciary Committee is that Jeff Flake said, if we request of the whole Senate, which really, I mean, he didn't say this out loud like this, but this is what it really means. What we're basically doing is we're putting this at the feet of Mitch McTurtle. All right? If Mitch McConnell will go along with it, we would like to have a 1 week long FBI investigation into this, or we'd like to have a week pause in order for there to be an FBI investigation. So at the very end, if they can't find any definitive proof, we will be able to say, see, the FBI looked into it and everything's good, which is what they said about Clarence Thomas, by the way, that provoked the outburst from Joe Biden that the Republicans keep quoting. You will note that throughout these hearings over and over and over again, the Republicans keep saying, well, Joe Biden says that the FBI, that if you think that an FBI report is conclusive, you're full of BS, that the FBI does not draw conclusions. The FBI only gathers evidence, and then we draw the conclusions, which is all true. But the reason Joe Biden said that was because when the FBI investigated Clarence Thomas, investigated Anita Hill's allegations into Clarence Thomas, they were not able, they came back and they said, we don't have any video of Clarence Thomas putting pubic hairs on a Coke can. We don't have any video of his showing porn or discussing porn or any audio of it with Anita Hill. We don't have any other witnesses who are willing to go on the record and say that they definitely saw that or heard that. People are saying, I can't remember, which is, by the way, how you get out of a perjury conviction, as Mark Judge is trying to do right now. I was too drunk. I don't remember. I'm sorry. And then you can't say that the person lied unless you can prove that they actually did remember, which is, pretty hard to do if at that point they decide they've got amnesia forever. So what Jeff Flake just set up was the same kind of defense that they used to push Clarence Thomas through, which was, well, the FBI looked into it. They couldn't prove it. And then they will add to that, therefore, it didn't happen, which is what they did with Clarence Thomas. They said, well, the FBI looked into it, and they couldn't prove it, therefore, it didn't happen. And Joe Biden said, no, the FBI never said it didn't happen. The FBI said they couldn't prove it. Quit giving us this BS. And, of course, the Republicans through this hearing have been saying, well, Joe Biden, and Lindsey Graham this morning, well, my good friend Joe Biden, I don't always agree with it, but he's a wise man, and he says things you should listen to him, and he said the FBI doesn't draw conclusions. And therefore, you shouldn't be basing one of these on, and, I mean, that's the whole story, right? So Jeff Flake is like riding into the sunset, looking like some kind of hero. Number one, I'm very doubtful that Mitch McConnell will ask the FBI to do an investigation, and it's now up to Mitch McConnell. Chuck Grassley just washed his hands of it. Because as soon as Jeff Flake said, if we have an FBI investigation, I'm willing to vote yes. And as soon as he said that, Chuck Grassley said, okay, call the roll. And I mean, Dianne Feinstein didn't even know what she was voting on. Right? It was that fast. And they just started Senator Flake, Senator Coons, Senator Grassley, and boom, the vote happened. Just like that. And we're out of here. And Jeff Flake gets to salvage his reputation in the minds of people who don't really know what's going on and don't know the backstory here. And it's obscene. Mike in South Florida listening on Sirius XM. Hey, Mike, what's up?
Great show, Tom. I hope you can hear me.
Just fine.
But I just want to say real quick, Keno, the Republican hater who's a Republican.
Yeah.
To love Teddy Roosevelt and not even have the guts to say, you know what, I'm going to be at least an independent. Maybe he hates Democrats too, who knows? But talk about tribalism.
Well, on the one hand. On the other hand, I think of my dad. My dad went to his grave as a Republican. And, his favorite picture, which was on the wall right next to him when he died, it was, he had two, me shaking hands with Pope John Paul II and George W. Bush on the aircraft carrier USS Lincoln declaring mission accomplished. I mean, wow. But he was an Eisenhower Republican. He was slowly starting to move away from this craziness. I mean, this was a decade ago when he died.
And you know, I get it. I get, you know, people who, you know, they've been Republicans their whole lives. Their friends are Republicans. They think they have, you know, these kind of Richard Nixon called it cloth coat Republican values, you know, and he's mourning something that no longer exists, Mike.
Yeah, I know. And I just want to say something briefly about Kavanaugh. You're right on the money as far as him. It is better to get him on, believe it or not. I mean, I hate to say this. The only thing that I would enjoy would be to see him turned down, in that he did what he did. He did this. He's guilty of it. But worse than that, he's a political. You know what he is. He's a
political hack. Kavanaugh is a toady on behalf of the Koch brothers and the other billionaires. And he is going to join 4 other toadies of the billionaire class on the Supreme Court, and they're going to tear this country apart. They're absolutely going to tear this country apart. Mike, I got to move along, but thank you for the call and for your thoughts. Jade in Olympia, Washington. Hey, Jade, what's up?
Hi, it's good to talk to you. And I just wanted to ask if you think that Flake is providing kind of a cover for Collins and McCaskey.
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Okay. And if they have the FBI investigation, and if the investigation comes back, just like with Clarence Thomas's investigation, where the FBI reports back, we don't have a smoking gun, we don't have evidence, we don't have, you know, fill in the blanks, whatever. We got no video, we got no audio, we've got conflicting testimony from different witnesses. Therefore, you know, make of it what you want. The Republicans will claim victory. They'll say, see, the FBI proved that there's no there, and that'll be the end of that. So, yeah, this is... You know, in many ways, Susan, what Jeff Flake just set up was the very worst possible outcome. Let's see here. Bill in Sun City, Arizona. Hey, Bill, what's up?
Hi, Tom. You do a great job.
Thank you.
Tom, I'd like to address the people that complain about the timing of Ms. Blasey coming out.
Well, she came out. She actually contacted the Senate before Kavanaugh's nomination was put forward.
It's all irrelevant to me, except because of this. At the time the event happened, that she was abused, Brett Kavanaugh and Mark, what's his last name?
Judge.
Picked the time. Mark Judge.
Ironically.
Picked the time of the event. She had no control when that event was going to happen, except that time in her life, those 2 boys, young men, picked the time, and that event happened.
Yeah.
She lived with the memory of that event throughout the days of her life as she grew older. It hurt her every day a little bit. There's no denying that.
Yep.
When it became unbearable for this woman to suffer it anymore, her civic-mindedness brought her forward.
Yeah, her concern about her country. In fact, that was her initial thing, is when the list of 25 people was first released who might go on the Supreme Court. That was when she contacted her elected representative and said, you know, one of those people on that list probably shouldn't be on that list. It wasn't, I don't want a Republican on the Supreme Court. It was I have a history with one of those people on that list. Spot on. Yeah, very well said, Bill. Thank you very much. Steve in San Francisco, listening on AM 910. Hey, Steve, what's up?
Hey, Tom. Yeah, you were just about right there. Flake is just, he's going to fake it there until the end, and he's playing both sides of the fence right now.
Yep.
The point I was going to make was, it was interesting when they asked him if he watched the doctor's, and, you know, the first part, and he said no, he did not watch it.
Right.
Kavanaugh said he didn't watch Blaisley
Ford's testimony.
Her testimony, yeah. It was just interesting to me, and I thought so too. I thought they should have hit harder on the alcoholic end of it by asking him if he's ever remembered being thrown out of a bar.
Well, if they don't have the evidence, I mean, you know, the first rule of cross-examination or examination, for that matter, is never ask a question you don't know the answer to. If they don't have evidence that he'd been thrown out of the bar. Now, they have this woman who's come forward who said that her daughter saw him, you know, shove a woman up against a
an outdoor wall when he was coming out of a bar in Washington, D.C. back about 15 years ago. 10 years ago, whatever it was, and grinding against her. But that has not been corroborated either. And that's the problem with all this. You know, the FBI is, you know, nobody, this was before the age of cell phones, right? This is the, you know, people weren't going to Facebook the day after and saying, hey, here's what happened at the party last night. The FBI is going to have a hell of a hard time. I'm sorry, go ahead, Steve. Quick.
Do you think Judge will flip on him if they get to him?
Who will flip on him?
Will Judge flip on Kavanaugh?
Drudge?
No,
Judge, Mark Judge. Oh, no, I think Mark Judge probably is going to continue to say he doesn't remember.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Fact, Mark Judge was such an alcoholic that he actually may not remember, which would be probably his best defense. And welcome back. Terry in New Windsor, New York, watching us on Free Speech TV. Hey, Terry, what's on your mind today?
Hey, spot on for you choosing your position to provide a platform for people to share their thoughts. I want to say thank you. And I want to say thank you. Sunday, that was a great idea when she called in. So I just want to get that out of the way, first of all. Sorry, I know that takes up time. But to get to my point of why I'm calling, senators could be listening right now. So it's really responsible and awesome of you to be taking calls from folks that have ideas that, you know, maybe could affect a vote right now. For example, a report from the AM News callers that have already warned that there will be a backlash against women if Kavanaugh does not get in. I can tell you I called in 6 months ago and I said, every woman call in with your examples of times that you spoke out against men who were being poopy to women. And now I'm taking that back because I have received so much retaliation for times that I spoke out since the Me Too movement started. It's really scary. So I have a request for men, if you don't mind.
Sure, go for it.
I'm wondering, we women cannot defend ourselves against this backlash by ourselves, and we need help from men. And I don't think that enough men know what women experience right now at this point, partly because of what your politician earlier today said on the air, which was the failure to listen to women, but it's also a failure of women to open their mouths when we've been trained to keep our mouths shut.
Yeah.
Anyway, the questions that I have, like a question for men and two questions for you, if you don't mind, just to put things into perspective. You look at dogs, and both male and female dogs, there's the alpha male, and then like a new dog will come and meet that alpha dog and automatically flip over and be submissive, you know? But humans are smarter than dogs. So I'm hoping that men will speak up for women and like think of that dog. Like, am I a dog? Am I automatically going to be submissive and a bystander every time I see a woman being treated like a poop head? No, I'm smarter than that. So I hope that you guys will help us out. And then also things to think about as men. When is the last time that you were treated like a piece of meat? And when is the last time that somebody said to you, falsely accused you of making something up?
Yeah.
And thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And you can answer those questions, Tom.
Terry,
when was the last time you were treated like a piece of meat?
You know, I've not had the experience. I have. Even though I was, born and raised in a lower middle class family economically, both my parents had the benefit of a college education, and I've had a relatively privileged life, and have been the recipient of not only white privilege but male privilege throughout my life. I also grew up without any sisters. I had 3 brothers, and didn't really understand many of these issues throughout my life, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life as a consequence of that. But that said, you said that there's going to be a backlash against women, that you were like quoting somebody if Kavanaugh is not put on the court. Who said that? Where'd you get that from?
From AM radio. Someone called into one of the shows. And I mean, it's already happening.
A caller. Yeah. Well, I suspect it is. And I suspect it happened in 92 after 91, whatever year it was, after the Anita Hill hearings as well. Terry, thank you for the call. We'll be back. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. I think this is a time of great learning, particularly for many men in America, and I think that's a really good thing. You always look for the silver lining in the freak show, the horror show that's going on around us, and hopefully many men are waking up and thinking about what this all means, and having a new and different understanding, particularly for those men who grew up without sisters, and I'm in that category. I had 3 brothers, and who didn't necessarily, as they achieved adulthood, have the understanding of the experience of girls and women, and in many cases made horrible mistakes as a consequence of that. And I think that I fall into that category, as do many men. And it's a great wake up for all of us. I mean, there's a long, we got 30, 40 years of great wake ups happening, but hopefully this one will have a little more impact than previous ones. Jackie in Port Townsend, Washington. Hey, Jackie, what's on your mind?
Hi, thank you for all you do and your staff as well. I still cannot swallow the fact that we cannot have nominees presented by an unindicted co-conspirator. Mm-hmm. And
it would be Donald Trump.
I've been looking back at your book, What Would Jefferson Do? And he just, hopefully we'll get the House and the Senate this fall, and then we have to address monopolies, and we have to strengthen freedom of the press.
Right.
What can you hypothesize about what would Jefferson do at this time?
Well, I think he would argue for breaking up the national media monopoly, essentially. I think that he would argue for breaking up the corporate monopolies, all this vertical integration. But I don't know. I think it's impossible to read the mind of somebody 250 years ago.
But certainly he wouldn't sit by and allow an illegitimate government to carry on.
Except that, he was part of the group. Well, actually, he wasn't there for the Constitutional Convention, but the Electoral College was just fine with him. Although he later, in 1816, he wrote a letter to Samuel Kercheval, July 12th, 1816, railing about the Electoral College, saying that that it was wrong. So, he changed his mind over his life, which is one of the problems with quoting Jefferson, because he's been on multiple sides of many issues, because over time he changed. He changed many of his perspectives. It's also the letter where he says he trusts the people rather than the rich. So, those are the things going on. Jackie, thank you for the call. Lucas in Spokane, Washington. Hey, Lucas, what's up?
Hey, Tom, how's it going?
Good. What's on your mind?
Thanks for taking my call. Hey, it's so interesting after what just happened. All my friends, a lot of women, texting me, being all happy of what happened, and I feel like they don't really understand that it doesn't seem like things are really.
You're talking
going.
about Jeff Flake saying we want an FBI investigation? Yeah. See, this is just going to be a giant fig leaf, in my opinion. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
But
well, and I don't know if the one thing I actually wanted to say. I feel like I have sympathy and empathy for women, but I'm not a woman, so I don't know what they go through. But I do know what it's like to be what I consider a kind of a manly guy, but had been picked on when I was a kid. And, if I was in the same situation, or not in the same situation, but if I was, let's say, picked on or bullied by a Kavanaugh back in the day, and I had an opportunity to come forward as a man and say, hey, this guy made my life hell, I don't think a lot of guys would have the guts to do that. And I think that's the only way that men can actually put themselves somewhat in a position of what it might be like to be a woman to have to come forward with that. And that's nothing compared to what allegations of rape or so it's just.
2 hours ago, I presented to Congressman Ro Khanna the suggestion that Brett is actually Biff from Back to the Future. And he was like, yeah, that's that guy. Yeah. That's that guy. We all know that guy. And, it's just, and in fact, Brett and Biff or Bart was what Mark Judge named him in his autobiography. I called him Bart O'Kavanaugh, who was barfing in the backseat of the car and passing out drunk.
And he denied the whole thing. He just filibustered everything.
Oh, I know. It was
in my mind.
It was outrageous. It was outrageous. Lucas, thanks a lot for the call. We'll be back with more of your calls, your thoughts, my thoughts. What are we going to do with this? What do we do next? What do we do if the Supreme Court does become hardcore right wing?
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
How do we respond when they strike down Roe v. Wade, when they declare Social Security unconstitutional, when they say that Medicare is a voluntary program, you can choose not to pay your taxes? It's the last day of the Free Speech TV Fund Drive, your last chance. Well, I suppose you can make donations anyway, anytime, but for this pledge drive, we need to hit this goal, and we're so far behind. And Andrew from San Diego's $15,000 match, we didn't use it all up yesterday. We only used up about $6,000 of it. So we still have a substantial match here. Every dollar you give will be matched. Every dollar you give. So please call now to Free Speech TV, 877-378-8669. Every dollar you give will be matched by this generous gift from Andrew. It's so critical that we have this television network, particularly during these times, particularly during this very, very difficult episode in the history of the United States, as the billionaire class has risen up and taken over the Republican Party to the point that individual Republicans like Jeff Flake and Bob Corker are looking at their career opportunities down the road with right-wing think tanks, with big law firms, with polluting companies that are going to make them rich, rich, rich when they leave the Senate, if only they hang in there. And nobody else talks about it. This network is so important. 877-378-8669. Please call now, 877-378-8669. We need your help. This is your last chance to get that really great feeling knowing that you gave to Free Speech TV and helped this network thrive and succeed and grow and keep on going. Plus, you have an opportunity to share your feedback. When you call and make your contribution, they take notes about what people say. And if you want to say, hey, I like this show, I don't like this show, I'd like more of this, I'd like less of that, whatever it may be, here's your chance. 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV. Please call now. With a $30 gift, you get the Free Speech TV mini kit. It's a sticker and a button. With a $72 gift, you get the first third edition. I guess it's the brand new, updated. I took a year and a half updating this book.
And it's just coming out now. It's literally shipping this week. And you'll be one of the very first people to get it with a $72 gift, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight. I think the best of all the books that I've written, and the most important of all the books I've written. With a $120 gift, you get the Free Speech TV t-shirt kit, you get the the sticker, the button, and the t-shirt made in the USA with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. With a $240 gift, you get the Free Speech TV hoodie kit. It's basically the same thing, only with a hoodie instead of a t-shirt, and the sticker and the button. With a $360 gift, you get the Vote for Our Future pack. That's sort of all of that's the Free Speech TV logo t-shirt and the zip-up hooded sweatshirt with the Vote Free Speech TV logo. This is a historic election coming up, and these are historic mementos. These are the kind of things that they'll be selling on eBay 10, 20, 30 years from now for absurd prices. If you look back at how election memorabilia goes, well, maybe not. Don't do this because you're hoping to make a fortune on collectibles, but I am going to be hanging on to mine. Anyhow, you get the t-shirt, you get the sweatshirt, the hoodie, you get the button, and you get the sticker. With a $480 gift, you get the all of the above package. That is my book, The Last Hours of Ancient Sunlight, the Vote Free Speech TV logo dark gray t-shirt, the zip-up hooded sweatshirt, the sticker, and the button. And with a $1,000 gift, come here to Portland and come hang out with us and see how we make this show, watch the sausage being made, and I'll take you to lunch and we can have a great conversation, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the issues of the day and on Free Speech TV and what we should do more or less of and what you find interesting and don't. I learn a lot from those meetings. I learn an awful lot from those meetings. Of course, I learn a lot from my callers too. It's really nice to meet people who have really made a substantial effort to help this network. And what's so surprising to me is that the vast majority, actually, of the people who've made these $1,000 gifts are not wealthy people. They're people for whom people who can afford to do it, but they're not the hoi polloi, the elite. They're people who just care a lot about this network and can make that kind of a contribution without it hurting them, which is just a great thing. So, however much you give, if it's $10, it becomes $20 today. A $30 gift becomes $60 today. A $72 gift becomes $124, $154, right? $144. 7 times 2 is 14, right? $120 gift. I never claimed the math was my strong suit. $120 gift becomes $240, and so on. Whatever you give, it's going to be doubled in terms of what Free Speech TV ends up with. And this is our last chance to soak up all of this matching grant. And there's a chunk of it left, a little less than $10,000. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Please call now. Take this opportunity today, the last day of the fund drive, to make your contribution and help this network stay on the air. Please call now, 877-378-8669. Please.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
All aboard. It's a once-in-a-lifetime luxury Alaskan cruise on the Regent Seven Seas Mariner, July 24th, 2019. For more information, Keen Luxury Travel, 800-856-1155. And did I mention we'll be getting active on board with special events with yours truly, me and Louise, as we visit Ketchikan, Juneau, Skagway, Sitka, Hubbard Glacier. Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you, and Andrea in Abbeville, South Carolina. Hey, Andrea, thanks for listening to Sirius XM. What's up?
Hey, I hope that you haven't already touched on this because I was kind of joining in late. Say that the like it was going to be
Andrea, Andrea, I'm sorry. I have to put you on hold. Andrea's on line 4, Louise, if you could check this out. Your phone was breaking up so badly, and I assume you're driving. And so maybe if you're down the road another mile or two, I'll come back to you, and we'll see if we can get a better signal. But I couldn't understand what you were saying. Michael in Tacoma, Washington. Hey, Michael, what's up?
Hey, Tom. I just wanted to make a statement about, everyone's calling these guys that treat women clearly men. And I think anatomically, you're males. I think men become men at some point in life when we decide how we're going to conduct ourselves. I read once that a woman's voice and a child's voice are high pitched because it invokes something in a man to protect them and care for them. So I like to not call these creeps men. One other thing I like to add is this 3/5 compromise. As a black man in America, I'm unwilling to compromise.
Yeah, Michael, your phone is falling apart now too. Can you? Is there anything you can do so I can hear you more clearly?
No, there's nothing I can do. I'm driving as well. Maybe I can get put on hold and hopefully we get a better place.
Okay. Michael, I'm sorry it's falling apart, but your first point was very well made, and I got it, and I agree with it. Thank you. Thank you for that. Dawn in Port Charlotte, Florida. Hey, Dawn, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. Watching the testimony yesterday, I thought that Professor Ford was incredible, but when they brought out Brett Kavanaugh, his excessive drinking of water, as a recovering person myself, reminds me of when and I'm a recovering person of 38 years, so it's not something new, but it's old behavior, just like smoking. He had a tendency that every time he got wound up and got upset about something, he grabbed for the water and he drank. And many times he grabbed for a drink. It's just similar to when a recovering person, whether it being smoking, alcohol, cigarettes, drugs, smoking pot, or whatever the case may be. It's that excessive behavior that we become so adaptive to satisfying or de-stressing us, whether it be with alcohol and stuff. He so regularly, every time he started to get upset yesterday, he drank. He drank. If you go back and watch how much water he actually drank, is pretty scary if you pay attention to body language and behaviors. I did not believe the man. I do not trust the man. Yes, I'm a victim of sexual trauma and was asked by my son. I was date raped when I was 14 years old, and we have dealt with that, and I do have a son that I gave up for adoption who is 44 years old. My son, middle son, said to me, would you come out 44 years later and say something? I said, if it meant that my 5 granddaughters, my daughter, or my 3 daughter-in-laws could be affected by this man's decision, of course I'd come out against him hardcore.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick question, Dawn. You said that as a recovering alcoholic, you saw behaviors, Kavanaugh's constant wanting to put a glass to his mouth and drink something, that was something that you recognized as alcoholic behavior. He insisted yesterday he does not have a drinking problem. Does that, in your mind, suggest that he might be a high-functioning alcoholic, that he's actually still an alcoholic and he's still drinking a lot?
Yes, because I think he's a con man, just like most alcoholics and even recovering alcoholics. And I will tell you, one of my worst behaviors, Tom, is that I can cut people apart and walk away with a smile, and they didn't even know that they were abused, because that's my behavior, and that's a behavior I work really hard at not doing.
Right.
Is cutting people apart to make myself feel better. And
so you see alcoholism as part of a broader spectrum of personality disorders or behaviors?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I very much do, and I say that, and I've been through mega counseling, AA, NA, adult children's, of alcoholics and codependents. So I have walked the walk and I talk the talk. It's not a lip service here, sir.
No, I get it. I get it. Dawn, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your story and for your observations. It's fascinating. Ken in Crystal Lake, Illinois. Hey, Ken, what's on your mind? Ken, you're on the air. Okay, no Ken. Let's try Brian in Missouri. Hey, Brian, what's on your mind?
Hey, Tom. First call. Hope you're having a good day. The Southern strategy for the Republicans has paid off. I think it's time the Democratic Party took a territorial strategy, capitalize on what's going on in Puerto Rico, and have Puerto Rico and other territories apply as states because they tend to vote Democratic. And after such expansion, they would be more likely to control the Senate and possibly even expand the Supreme Court to 11 justices. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that incorporating a state requires 2/3 of the vote in the Senate. Now, it might just be, I'm thinking back to Hawaii and Alaska, which happened when I was a little kid, but I remember, well, I don't, my recollection is that it took a supermajority, but it might have been just to overcome a filibuster. The filibuster was pretty strong back then. In fact, it was a 2/3 filibuster back in the 50s. So that's probably a fairly high bar. On the other hand, regulating the Supreme Court, changing the number of members of the Supreme Court, introducing term limits to the Supreme Court, to the best of my understanding, that requires a simple majority in the House and Senate. Again, it may be subject to filibuster in the Senate, but even so, that would be 60 votes rather than 66, with the modern filibuster, since they dropped it from 66 down to 60. So it's a high bar, Brian, but I agree with you. I think that Puerto Ricans, if they have U.S. passports, they should have representation. Otherwise, it's classic taxation without representation. And the same is true of Washington, D.C., which has a larger population than several states. There's 800,000 people in Washington, D.C. There's only 600,000 in Vermont, and somewhere in between the two, I believe, in Wyoming. And, and that would give us 4 Democratic senators. I also think California should say, let's split our state in 2, although it's never going to happen. And, Florida should split itself in 2. Texas should split itself in 2. And New York State should separate from New York City. And that would give us, a whole bunch of new Democratic senators, and it would make the Senate more representative of America as a whole. But spot on, Brian. Thank you very much. Howard here in Indiana, or there in Indiana. Howard, it says you disagree with me. You're listening on Sirius XM. What's up?
No, I don't disagree with you. All I said is I hope the FBI investigation will cover Feinstein holding back key information for 6 weeks, plus now the complicity of Ford's lawyers, which has been brought up yesterday, and why they weren't given information from the Senate to her.
Okay. All right. We'll see. And Feinstein held that information back, by the way, at the request of Dr. Ford. I mean, it's a little disingenuous to accuse her of doing something nasty when she was simply doing what the victim asked her to do. Andrea in Abbeville, South Carolina. You want to try it again?
Yes, I'd like to try it again. Can you hear me now?
It sounds good. Yeah. What's on your mind?
Okay. Well, I hope I'm not. I hope that you haven't already covered this because I kind of got the tail end. But I'm understanding that you don't feel like the FBI investigation would be a good thing. And I was thinking with Mark Judge, I believe it is, when they asked the question yesterday, he avoided the question and was very sarcastic and said, "Well, I don't know. Why don't you ask him?" When they asked, was he Bart O'Kavanaugh? And would it not be a good thing for instead of just a letter from his attorney, for them to be able to ask him questions?
Yes. No, I agree with you, Andrea. I'm completely in favor of an FBI investigation. I have been calling for one all along. What I'm pointing out is don't think that this is going to be the solution to everything. And when the FBI investigated Clarence Thomas's allegations, they reported back to the United States Senate that they couldn't find, that they had some witnesses who said, yes, Clarence Thomas was like that. They had other witnesses who said, no way, he was never like that. They were not able to find any witness who saw him put pubic hair on a can of Coke. They were able to, in the like that, not like that, they were not able to find any other women who would testify under oath that he had propositioned them or tried to share pornography with them, which were the charges of Anita Hill. And so the report came back to the Senate rather ambiguous. Could have been he did it. Could have been he didn't do it.
we can't prove it either way. And I'm pretty sure that that's probably what's going to come out of the FBI investigation, even of Mark Judge, because Mark Judge will probably make the defense that he doesn't remember, and he might even expand that to that he doesn't remember because he was blind drunk. And with his history, that's actually a credible position to take. So when the FBI took that information back to the Senate back in the early 90s with regard to Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill, and they said, we can't prove it one way or the other, but here's the evidence on both sides, the Republicans stood up and said, see, this exonerates Clarence Thomas. The FBI has proved he's not guilty. In response to which Joe Biden stood up and said the FBI did no such thing. They didn't say if he was guilty or not guilty. The FBI doesn't draw those kinds of conclusions. They merely gathered the evidence. It's up to us to decide that. And if you think that the FBI makes those decisions, you don't know how the FBI works. And that's the quote from Joe Biden that the Republicans repeated like 7 times in the last 2 days, all over the place. And people try to call into this show repeating it. And I predict that that's exactly what the Republicans are going to do again. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they find clear evidence that Dr. Ford is either telling the truth or not, and that Kavanaugh is either telling the truth or not. But the odds are 90% odds are that they're going to come back and they're going to say a little bit of this and a little bit of that. You guys make up your mind. And the Republicans will stand up and say, see, that proves he didn't do it because there's not proof positive. They don't have videotape of her being assaulted. And the Democrats then are going to stand up and say the same thing that Joe Biden said during the Clarence Thomas hearings. How dare you say that the FBI just exonerated him when the FBI said no such thing? So that's my point, Andrea. Make sense?
I'm glad you made that point because I kept thinking yesterday, it seemed like he would never admit to, well, yes, go ahead.
I think he's afraid of it because he knows that there's a 10% chance that he'll get nailed. And that's why she was not afraid of it, because she knows that there's no chance she'll get nailed because she's telling the truth. But the reality is it's probably about a 90% chance that it just becomes, well, maybe not.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
And because this is a job interview, if there's even a maybe not, the answer, this is not a trial. The answer should be no, you don't get to be on the Supreme Court. We got a maybe. And welcome back. Sharon in Weaverville, North Carolina. Hey, Sharon, what's on your mind today?
Hi, first-time caller. I listen to you all the time, though.
Thank you.
I just wanted to, I don't think anyone has, the lady that was doing the questioning for the Republican side of Judge Kavanaugh, did you all notice that they stopped using her after she started talking about that one weekend on his calendar. It was the July, I think, 2nd weekend on the calendar, where the people that Dr. Ford had mentioned were at this party that he was talking about. And all of a sudden, they pulled her, and the rest of the Republicans started asking questions.
Right.
I think that might be the weekend that this whole thing happened.
Yes, July 1st.
And if they...
It's actually a Friday.
Whatever. And I think if they got had an FBI investigation, they would find out when he was working at that Safeway, and that she could pinpoint that.
We know when he was working at the Safeway now, Sharon. It's in his book. And he talked about...
Oh, it is.
Yeah, and it turns out that was about... He was working at the Safeway almost exactly 6 to 8 weeks after July 1st. And so her recollection is right. His book corroborates it.
And this is why I think Lindsey Graham because I think the Republicans realized that weekend was probably the weekend, and that's why they stopped that woman from, because you even look in her face. I think even her expressions changed. Yep. I think right then she realized that he's probably guilty. And, they need to have an investigation. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree. Sharon, well said. Thank you very much for the call. And spot on. Let's see here. Pete in Seattle, Washington, listening on KBCS. Hey, Pete, what's up?
Oh, geez. Let me put down my paintbrush. Hi. I just wanted to make, a counterpoint or mention a counterpoint that talking heads might be able to use when the Republicans, say, "Oh, this is been sprung on us at the last minute."
Yeah, can you get to your point, Pete?
It's trying to, that Obama has been waiting, how long for Merrick Garland to actually be, seriously considered as a candidate, and that's like 18 months. I know the Dems can't say that, but
yeah, it was 10 months actually. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Oh.
And it was absurd. It was obscene. It was wrong.
Yeah. And it's true that they can't really come out and say that they're, seeking revenge here, right?
No, although I think it was Richard Blumenthal, it might have been Sheldon Whitehouse, pointed that out this morning. How come you guys are so hysterical about getting this done in the next few weeks when you were perfectly willing to sit on Merrick Garland's, nomination without even a hearing for 10 months? And Grassley was like, well, I'm not going to respond. What?
Yeah. And Tom, can I just ask you maybe two other short questions? Get your opinion.
Well, we're out of time. We're hitting a break right now. My apologies, Pete. Call back next week and we'll try it again. Pete, thanks a lot for the call and thanks for listening to KBCS. We're going to check in with Luke Vargas with Talk Media News right after the break. So my apologies to the rest of our callers who are online. We're not going to get to you, unless Luke drops out, which is pretty unlikely. So we'll be back. Free Speech TV is supported by your contributions, and I strongly encourage you during the pledge drives, or even not during the pledge drives, to call Free Speech TV at 877-378-8669 and make a contribution, support Free Speech TV. But that said, our program, the Thom Hartmann Program, what you're watching right now, is sustained by commercial advertising, and we're on commercial stations around the country. We run ads. They pay us for that. And one of the ways that you can support our program is by going to thomhartmann.com, our website, and clicking on the advertisements on that page for our sponsors and buying their products, supporting their products, or letting them know that you care about their products and that you support our show. That's thomhartmann.com, and click on the advertising there to support our program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate your supporting Free Speech TV by your ongoing, calling and supporting the fundraising drives, and we also would really appreciate if you go to thomhartmann.com.
Want to connect with the show online? You can find the Thom Hartmann Program on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Let's check in with Talk Media News and find out what's going on in the world today. This report brought to you by goatsfortheoldgoat.com. And Ellen Ratner's new book, Loving What You Do. On the line with us is the New York Bureau Chief, the United Nations based at the United Nations in New York, Luke Vargas, or actually you're a different bureau chief, aren't you, Luke? There's another title for you.
I am the chief foreign correspondent.
Thank you, the chief foreign correspondent. I've said it many times. I'm sorry. You can be followed on Twitter at The Courier. So what's going on in the world, Luke?
Well, I will shift everyone's attention away from Washington for a moment because a lot has been going on. And the big thing to watch as we head into the weekend is trade. We are going to be getting sometime between 6 and 7 p.m. The trade representatives of the United States and Mexico will release the text of their NAFTA, in air quotes, renegotiation deal. There is a lot of interest hanging on this, not least in Canada, a country that I think has probably lost more international clout than many here at the United Nations this week. Justin Trudeau came here trying to figure out a way to get back in Trump's good graces, to try and put Canada back in the driver's seat on trade. He failed at almost every turn.
Trump is hatefully jealous of Justin Trudeau. He's young, he's good looking, he doesn't need money or harassment to pick up girls. Well, he's got a wife now and a family. I mean, he's everything Donald Trump isn't. I don't think Trump is ever going to be friends with Justin Trudeau.
Yeah. Whatever the rationale there, the enmity directed at Canada was pretty palpable at a lunch that occurred after President Trump spoke on Tuesday. I happened to be in the room while Canada's prime minister has been seated with the president at his table in years past. He was noticeably not there, sent to a secondary table this year. The person just a few seats over from President Trump this year was Mexico. And that sort of tells us what we need to know about this trade deal, that you had for months been seeing the leaders of Mexico and Canada feeling like they needed to be united against Trump. The Canadians said, we're not going to push forward on a bilat without the Mexicans, and vice versa. It turns out Mexico sort of pursued two tracks. They have continued to say they are pushing the United States to agree to various provisions of this NAFTA deal that will include Canada in the future. But at the same time, they have been unafraid to race ahead with the U.S. and leave Canada behind. And so it's Canada that this week signed on to a sort of a renewal of the U.S. war on drugs. At least it's not clear Canada's policies are actually going to change very much, but they were basically bent by U.S. pressure, forced to sign this deal. Canada thought they could get some, applause from President Trump for doing that. They didn't, and then Trudeau was humiliated at home for, signing on to a prohibitionist drug policy, resolution that very much undercuts the needle sharing, the legalization of marijuana policies, and other things that Trudeau has championed. He was spurned by President Trump at that lunch. And the chances that Canada has succeeded in convincing the U.S. and others to back its seat on the UN Security Council also appear to have been dashed this week. And so what we're hearing now is that there is a shifting realization in Canada that no NAFTA deal is better than a bad NAFTA deal, and that the country's trade representatives are beginning to think that the strategy going forward should be to perhaps walk away, even if just for a little bit, and start making one-on-one deals with the U.S. and with Canada or with Mexico. So it's a big week for trade, and let's watch what happens at 7 to see if there is room left in this deal for Canada to get back in, or if the U.S. and Mexico are just going to do this and push on ahead.
Fascinating. Luke Vargas with Talk Media News. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you, Tom. Have a great weekend.
You too. And you can follow Luke at The Courier on Twitter. One last note for everybody. Monday is October 1st. It's the day that the U.S. government is going to drop $1 trillion worth of treasuries, if I recall David Stockman's comments correctly. And that could jack interest rates, which could crash the market, in my opinion. It's going to be real interesting to watch, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. Monday could be a real interesting day. In the meantime, don't forget, democracy is not a spectator sport. Have a wonderful weekend. Get out there, get active, tag, you're it. We'll see you on Monday.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit thomhartmann.com.
From United